Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. It seemed like he had already known about their plan and had been waiting for them in his office. Juzo nodded and continued. We may be weak, but we don't need to defeat him. We just need to stall him here. Master Genji's men should be watching from nearby. Zabuza glanced around, sensing faint presences lurking in the shadows. He scowled. Those damn fence-sitters. They're just going to watch? Aren't they afraid that the 4th might go full-tailed beast mode and wipe out the entire area? Annoyed as he was, Zabuza had no time to dwell on it. His only choice was to continue fighting and make the Mizukage feel a real threat to his life, otherwise, there was no chance of breaking his control. Juzo had the same thought. Right now, all he cared about was the fight. A few hundred meters away, Matrumam and Dao were crouched on a rooftop with several dozen subordinates. Since Zabuza infiltrated the Mizukage building half an hour ago, the 2 of them had been stationed here, observing his actions. Something about the infiltration struck them as odd. The Mizukage building should have been heavily guarded. It shouldn't have been this easy for Zabuza and Juzo to sneak in without a major battle breaking out. This could only mean one of 2 things. First, Master Genji had secretly helped Zabuza infiltrate the building, and second, the 4th Mizukage himself had allowed them in. Master Genji might have supported their actions, but he wouldn't have directly intervened. That left only one possibility. The 4th Mizukage had anticipated Zabuza and Juzo's movements and prepared accordingly. And from the way he reacted, this theory was practically confirmed. Just then, a thunderous roar shook the night. The tailed beast transformed Mizukage lunged at Zabuza and Juzo, his mere movement tearing through the ground and leaving deep scars in the earth. Seeing this, Ao couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The 4th is just as strong as ever. If not for him back then, we would have suffered an even worse defeat against Hidden Leaf Village. Mai narrowed her eyes, clearly displeased. Ao, now's not the time to reminisce. Use your Byakugan. Can you see if the 4th is actually being controlled? Ao's expression grew solemn. He activated his Byakugan, then sighed deeply. Zabuza and Juzo were right. Aside from his own chakra and the 3 tails chakra, there's a third presence inside the 4th. Ao's face then turned grim. He really has been turned into a puppet all these years, wreaking havoc in Hidden Mist Village under someone else's control. Mai's expression hardened as she locked eyes on the Mizukage in the distance. Ao, is there any way to break the Ganjutsu on him? There are multiple ways to break a Ganjutsu. But all of them require us to subdue the 4th first. Then what are you waiting for? Mai formed hand seals, preparing to use the teleportation jutsu to join the fight, but Ao stopped her. Wait. Let's observe for a bit longer. Mai glared at him. Are you saying we should let Zabuza and Juzo weaken him first? That might reduce our casualties, but if this fight escalates further, the entire village will be caught in the crossfire. Ao smiled bitterly and explained his real concern. I'm not stopping you from going. With your strength, you could easily turn the tide of the battle. But think about it, breaking the 4th Scanjutsu isn't actually the most important thing here. Our real target isn't the Mizukage. It's the one controlling him. That person is probably watching us right now. Mai's expression changed. Ao's theory made too much sense. But if the mastermind was truly invincible, they wouldn't have needed to rely on stealth and Ganjutsu. If they could just wake the 4th Mizukage up, everything could be fixed. Ao, stay here and be ready to support us. I'm going in. With that, Mai vanished in a blur. Within moments, she had crossed the rooftops and reached the battlefield. Ao watched her leave, his gaze flickering as he sighed. I really am getting old. I hesitate over things that younger ones charge into without fear. He paused, then clenched his fists and muttered to himself. But rushing in blindly won't accomplish anything. We need to prepare for the worst. If the mastermind forces the 4th to fully transform into the 3 tails, we'll have a real disaster on our hands. Back at the Mizukage building with Mai joining the battle, the pressure on Zabuza and Juzo eased significantly. Although Mai was a woman and had less battlefield experience than them, Her dual Kekkei Genkai made her an elite among Jonin, on par with the 7 ninja swordsmen. Now, even the tailed beast-enhanced 4th Mizukage couldn't fully dominate the fight. Taking advantage of the moment, Zabuza smirked and called out. "Big sis Mai. I never thought you'd actually help us. I figured you'd just keep watching from the sidelines." At the words "Big sis," Mai's expression darkened. She shot Zabuza a dangerous glare. "Say that again. I dare you. I'm only 26, right at a woman's prime." Zabuza, unfazed, responded. 26 isn't old. Most kunoichi in the village already have kids running around by that age. Mai's eyebrow twitched violently. She absolutely hated when people mentioned her age. After forming the hand seals, Maitru Mummy spat towards Zabuza. Though it looked like mere saliva, it was actually a powerful acidic lava-style technique, even more corrosive than sulfuric acid. Blocking the attack with his sword, Zabuza stared at the corroded blade, feeling a chill in his heart. This woman was still as terrifying as ever. No wonder she was still unmarried at her age. However, forcing the 4th Mizukage into a desperate situation required Maitru Mummy's Kekkei Genkai. Adjusting his mindset, Zabuza said. "Eternally 18-year-old sis Maitru Mummy, let's not fight among ourselves. We should work together to break the Ganjutsu on the 4th Mizukage." Hearing the eternally 18 remark, Juzobiwa looked surprised, but Maitru Mummy was quite pleased and gave a slight nod. After exchanging eye contact and hand signals to finalize their battle strategy, the three of them charged at the 4th Mizukage once more. While Zabuza and Juzo engaged in close combat to restrict the 4th Mizukage's movements, Maitru Mummy formed hand seals and unleashed a massive cloud of superheated steam. The intense heat caused the 4th Mizukage significant discomfort. Just as he prepared to counter with a wind-style technique, Maitru Mummy followed up with lava-style. A corrosive liquid splashed onto the 4th Mizukage, rapidly melting through his tailed beast cloak. Within moments, his bare skin and muscles were exposed. Witnessing this, both Zabuza and Juzo were shocked. Although their combat prowess wasn't far behind Maitru Mummy's, they were nowhere near her level in terms of sheer destructive capability. No wonder Master Genji had gone to such lengths to protect her. Her power alone was worth safeguarding. For a Mizukage, being the strongest in the village wasn't enough, they also had to be capable of subduing tailed beasts. Otherwise, just dealing with the two tailed beasts within the village would be an overwhelming burden. Noticing Zabuza and Juzo's stares, Maitru Mummy was secretly pleased. She was determined to become the next Mizukage, and on that path, she wouldn't allow any blemishes on her record. She had to claim the title honorably, leaving no room for others to find fault. After this brief moment of self-reflection, Maitru Mummy focused back on the 4th Mizukage. With his tailed beast cloak destroyed and his skin corroded, the 4th Mizukage's cold and indifferent gaze became clouded with confusion. He looked around uncertainly before turning to Maitru Mummy and the others. "Maitru Mummy. Zabuza. Why are you here?" Seeing this, Zabuza and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Their attacks had worked. Faced with a life-threatening situation and the chaos of his disrupted chakra, the 4th Mizukage seemed to have broken free from the Ganjutsu's control. With that in mind, Zabuza stepped forward and said, "4th Mizukage, you are under Ganjutsu. You issued numerous harmful orders, throwing the village into chaos." The 4th Mizukage touched his head, then muttered. "Is that so? It feels like I've been trapped in a dream. Only now am I fully awake. Can you tell me what year it is? What exactly happened?" Zabuza nodded and took a step closer. But just before he reached the 4th Mizukage, he suddenly halted and said coldly. "There's no point explaining everything. You wouldn't be able to atone for what you've done, even if we talked for 3 days straight. Just take responsibility and die." "Die?" Maitru Mummy was momentarily stunned, not understanding why Zabuza would say such a thing. Juzo, however, immediately caught on and locked his eyes onto the 4th Mizukage. The 4th Mizukage's expression darkened as he responded. "At least tell me what I did wrong before sentencing me to death. I am still the 4th Mizukage of Hidden Mist Village. If I die, who will protect the village?" The arrogance in his tone made Maitru Mummy realize what was going on. The 4th Mizukage hadn't actually broken free from control. Right now, it wasn't him speaking, it was the mastermind behind the scenes, trying to deceive them and launch a surprise attack. Understanding this, Maitru Mummy glanced at Zabuza and gave him a thumbs up. Even though she was often annoyed by the way Zabuza addressed her, she had to admit he had an exceptional ability to analyze situations. He had sensed the 4th Mizukage's deception right away. Zabuza, feeling slightly awkward under Maitru Mummy's gaze, cleared his throat. The truth was, he hadn't been testing the 4th Mizukage at all, he genuinely wanted him dead. Whether he had been controlled or not, the 4th Mizukage needed to die. As the leader of Hidden Mist Village, He had a responsibility to the village, and for his failures, he had to pay the ultimate price. As Zabuza stared down the Mizukage, another gaze was also fixed upon them, the one controlling him from the shadows, Obito Uchiha. After a few moments of heavy breathing, Obito could clearly feel that his Genjutsu was beginning to unravel. If the battle continued at this intensity, Yagura and Isabu would inevitably break free. Rather than waiting for that to happen, he decided to use the last of his remaining eye power to force a final move. Taking a deep breath, Obito exerted his remaining Mangekyo Sharingan chakra, commanding Yagura and Isabu into full-tailed beast transformation, initiating their rampage. As the Genjutsu activated, the fourth Mizukage's body became engulfed in a massive surge of chakra. His form rapidly expanded, transforming from a childlike figure into the full form of Isabu, the Three Tails. In an instant, a towering behemoth, the size of a small mountain, loomed over the battlefield. This was the true form of the Three Tails Isabu, the ultimate state of a perfect Jinchuriki's transformation. Chapter 345, The Vanishing Bloodline Limit. Facing the massive Three Tails, as large as a small mountain, Zabuza and Juzobiwa wore grim expressions. Their expertise lay in close combat, but the Three Tails' carapace alone was a meter thick. Such heavy armor left them with only a few weak points to target, such as the neck and eyes. But getting close to the Three Tails was easier said than done. Though it appeared sluggish, its movement speed rivaled that of a high-ranking Jonin, capable of covering several hundred meters in mere seconds. Gritting their teeth, Zabuza and Juzo charged in once more. Maitru Mummy continued her assault with lava style and boil style, attempting to corrode the Three Tails' armor. As its weak points came under attack, the Three Tails curled up into a ball and began rolling across the battlefield. Its massive body effortlessly crushed the Mizukage building, flattening everything in its path as it barreled toward the outskirts of Hidden Mist Village. Seeing this, Ao, who had been observing from the sidelines, grew visibly tense. He hadn't expected the Genjutsu on the fourth Mizukage to be this powerful. Even after such an intense, prolonged battle, it remained unbroken. Nor had he anticipated the fourth Mizukage to be so overwhelmingly strong, rendering even Juzo and Maitru Mummy helpless. Even if they managed to push the fourth Mizukage back, the mastermind behind the scenes could still drive him into a rampage, unleashing indiscriminate destruction. Letting out a quiet sigh, Ao removed his eye patch. As his Byakugan activated, his vision pierced through the Three Tails' body, locking onto the fourth Mizukage inside. His expression softened slightly. The Genjutsu was already gone. Once the fourth Mizukage had fully transformed into the Three Tails, the illusion had naturally dissipated. This was good news for Hidden Mist Village. If they could stop the Three Tails' rampage, the fourth Mizukage could regain his senses and stand with them once more. But subduing the Three Tails was a different matter entirely. At present, Hidden Mist Village had very few shinobi capable of standing against a tailed beast. Aside from Zabuza, Juzo, and Maitru Mummy, only Maingetsu Hazuki and the newly inducted member of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen, Kisame, remained. According to the Hazuki clan, Maingetsu was gravely ill and no longer able to fight. But Kisame should still be in Hidden Mist Village. So where was he? Had he left on a mission? Or had he been intercepted by the mastermind? After a brief moment of contemplation, Ao issued the order to assist Maitru Mummy. There was no time to dwell on the mastermind's whereabouts. If they failed to stop the fourth Mizukage, Hidden Mist Village would be reduced to rubble. Soon, dozens of Hidden Mist Village shinobi arrived at the scene. They began setting up a sealing formation around the Three Tails. As long as Maitru Mummy and the others could suppress it, they would be able to seal it away. Several kilometers away, Byakuya stood with Haku and Kimimaro, observing the battle. When they saw the fourth Mizukage lose control and transform into the Three Tails, Haku and Kimimaro couldn't help but gasp. They had always known that, as one of the five Kage, the fourth Mizukage was powerful, but they hadn't expected him to be this powerful. Even setting aside his abilities, his sheer size alone was enough to devastate an entire nation. After their initial shock, Haku and Kimimaro grew increasingly worried for Zabuza's safety. They suspected he wasn't a match for the fourth Mizukage at all. This so-called assassination mission seemed no different from throwing an egg against a rock. Unlike the anxious Haku and Kimimaro, Byakuya remained completely unfazed. Compared to the One Tail and Two Tails, the Three Tails was relatively weak. Not only was it failing to utilize its water-style chakra nature, but it wasn't even casting any jutsu. Its combat effectiveness was truly underwhelming. Then again, considering the Three Tails' true form was that of a turtle, this kind of behavior did suit its nature. If this battle continued, Hidden Mist Village's shinobi might be able to handle the Three Tails on their own, restoring the fourth Mizukage to his senses without his intervention. At that moment, the Three Tails let out a deep roar and began gathering chakra, forming a tailed beast ball. The instant it appeared, everyone on the battlefield turned pale. The tailed beast ball was a jutsu exclusive to the tailed beasts. It didn't involve any flashy techniques, only pure, overwhelming destructive power. It was precisely because of this power that the 5 great nations maintained a fragile balance. No matter how fierce the wars between them became, they refrained from indiscriminately slaughtering civilians, preserving a semblance of mutual restraint. A few seconds later, the Three Tails' attempt to fully form the tailed beast ball was forcibly interrupted. Even so, the incomplete attack resulted in a massive explosion. A devastating shockwave swept across the battlefield at supersonic speeds. Even Byakuya, standing several kilometers away, felt the tremors. Blocking the incoming shockwave with one hand, he mused. Zabuza and Juzo still need more training. If it were me, I wouldn't have given the 4th Mizukage the chance to enter tailed beast mode in the first place. But I suppose there's no harm in letting them play with the little turtle for a while. It's not like tailed beasts are all that strong anyway. Hearing Byakuya's casual remark, Haku and Kimimauro's expressions turned strange. To them, tailed beasts were walking disasters. But to Byakuya, they were mere pets? Maybe we're the ones in the way here. We should just leave quietly. Suppressing their complaints, Haku and Kimimaro approached Byakuya, lowering their heads as they pleaded. Byakuya-sama, will you intervene against the 4th Mizukage? If this continues, Zabuza-sama and Juzo-sama will die. Byakuya glanced at them and said. Zabuza and Juzo are experienced shinobis. Their reaction speed and agility are 7 times that of an average shinobi. Haku and Kimimaro exchanged confused glances, unsure of what he was getting at. What I mean is, even though they can't defeat the Three Tails, if they truly wanted to escape, the Three Tails wouldn't be able to stop them. They're choosing to stay and fight, maybe for Hidden Mist Village, maybe for themselves. If they don't want to run, why should I interfere? Byakuya shrugged. Besides, I already offered Zabuza a position as my subordinate. I would have handled his problems for him. But unfortunately, he turned me down. Haku and Kimimaro finally understood Byakuya's meaning. After exchanging glances, they bowed deeply. Byakuya-sama, we won't ask you to intervene. But at least, let us go help them. Byakuya chuckled. Let you rush in and throw your lives away? Maybe when you're adults, you'll have the strength to fight the Three Tails, but right now, you're useless. Haku and Kimimaro nodded. We know we aren't strong enough, but we still want to go. Even if it means dying, we want to die fighting alongside Zabuza-sama. Their determination was unwavering. No matter how powerful the 4th Mizukage was, they refused to abandon Zabuza. Had he not protected them in the past, they would have long since become corpses left for the wild dogs to feast upon. Byakuya studied them for a moment before suddenly smiling. I admire your courage and loyalty, but I told you, right now, you don't have the strength to fight the Three Tails. Unless. Haku and Kimimaro looked at him in confusion. Unless you obtain the power of an elite Jonin right here and now. Pausing briefly, Byakuya continued. And as it happens, I can lend you that power. After thinking for a moment, Haku and Kimimaro looked at Byakuya with determined eyes and said. Byakuya-sama, if you lend us your power, what price must we pay? Their childhood experiences had taught them that nothing in this world comes for free. Byakuya looked at Haku and Kimimaro with a meaningful expression and said. I require your loyalty. I can grant you power, but from now on, you must swear allegiance to me. Haku and Kimimaro hesitated for a moment before asking in confusion. Byakuya-sama, isn't your goal to bring all of Hidden Mist Village under your command? When that happens, we will naturally be your subordinates. Byakuya shook his head lightly. You are Zabuza's subordinates, not Hidden Mist Village's. And I see great potential in you. Rather than indirect allegiance, I prefer to lead you directly. Hearing this, Haku and Kimimaro thought for a while before nodding in agreement. Seeing how quickly they accepted, Byakuya didn't waste words. He directly formed 2 wood-style seeds and placed them on Haku and Kimimaro's shoulders. Haku and Kimimaro were a little confused, but they soon noticed the seeds transforming into vines and wrapping around their wrists. Byakuya explained. These are wood-style seeds, a secret technique of the wood-style bloodline limit. Their effect is simple, they provide you with the chakra reserves of an elite Jonin. In critical moments, they can also save your life. This is your reward for joining me, and also the only aid I will provide you. Haku and Kimimaro carefully felt the changes in their wrists and realized that the wood-style seeds were continuously supplying them with chakra. Their hearts filled with joy, and they bowed respectfully to Byakuya. Then, without hesitation, they leaped from their high vantage point, diving toward the battlefield where the Three Tails was rampaging. Watching them leave, Byakuya shook his head slightly, admiring their loyalty. In the original timeline, Both of them were outstanding shinobi who remained devoted to their superior until their deaths. And right now, loyal subordinates were exactly what he lacked. The Akatsuki was full of talent, but none of them were truly trustworthy. Hikazu was obsessed with money. He worshipped his so-called god. Sasori had to be won over using puppetry. And Hiroko only joined to exact revenge on Hidden Leaf Village. As for Orochimaru, he was a notorious traitor who would betray anyone unless he was in charge. If Byakuya ever let his guard down, Orochimaru would surely turn on him. His subordinates were far from reliable. Reflecting on the state of the Akatsuki, Byakuya turned his gaze back toward the Three Tails, eager to see how Haku and Kinamaru would perform. The wood-style seeds he had given them were, in truth, an application of spore technique. This secret ability, derived from Black Zetsu's White Zetsu, could drain chakra from its host, or supply them with chakra when needed. It was an extremely potent jutsu. His recruitment of Haku and Kinamaru wasn't just because of their loyalty and potential, he also wanted to test the limits of the spore technique, seeing how strong Ai's style and Shikatsu could become when granted a vast chakra reserve. Pulling his thoughts back to the present, Byakuya surveyed the battlefield. The fight between Zabuza and the fourth Mizukage had gone on long enough. If Obito had any intelligence at all, he should have realized what was happening by now. So why hadn't he shown up yet? Could it be that Byakuya had coincidentally chosen a time when Obito was absent? With the power of the wood-style seeds boosting them, Haku and Kinamaru used teleportation jutsu repeatedly. In just a few minutes, they reached the battlefield. At that moment, the battle between Hidden Mist Village's forces and the Three Tails had reached a critical stage. The Three Tails had crushed numerous Hidden Mist Village ninja with its sheer size and tailed beast balls, but it had taken some damage in return. Its head and limbs bore injuries, and even its shell had a noticeable crack. Sensing movement behind them, the Hidden Mist Village ninja quickly turned to look. When they saw the Haku and Kinamaru weren't wearing Hidden Mist Village forehead protectors, their expressions darkened. They immediately fixed their eyes on the two unexpected intruders. At this critical moment in the fight against the Three Tails, any unknown factor could be dangerous. Just as Ao was about to lead his men to confront Haku and Kinamaru, Zabuza and Juzobiwa noticed them as well. Zabuza retreated a few steps, approaching Haku and Kinamaru with a frown. "Why are you two here? Didn't I tell you not to interfere in the Mizukage's affairs?" Haku and Kinamaru stared at Zabuza, silent. Maitru Mummy glanced over and smirked. "Zabuza, these two are your subordinates? I have to admit, they're pretty loyal to come all the way here for you." Zabuza's expression darkened. He said coldly. "Loyal? These two idiots disobeyed my orders and ran here anyway. What use do I have for such useless subordinates?" Mai raised an eyebrow but smiled knowingly. She understood, Zabuza was trying to push them away for their own safety. Who would have thought that the infamous demon of the Hidden Mist actually had such a soft side? Haku lifted his head and looked Zabuza straight in the eyes. "We are not useless. We now have the power to fight the Mizukage. We can help you, Lord Zabuza." As he spoke, Haku raised his hand, and in an instant, dozens of ice needles formed in the air and shot skyward. Kinamaru activated Shikatsu, and sharp bones protruded from his body, reflecting the morning light with a chilling gleam. Ice style and Shikatsu? The Hidden Mist Village shinobi around them were visibly shaken, their expressions changing as they turned to Zabuza. The demon of the Hidden Mist had been secretly harboring the remnants of the Yuki and Kaguya clans? And judging by their proficiency in bloodline limit, they had already reached the level of a Jonin. Even Zabuza's face changed slightly. Just 3 days ago, Haku and Kinamaru had only been Chunin level at best. How had they suddenly become as strong as Jonin? They weren't lying, they truly were strong enough to join the battle. But Zabuza absolutely would not let them. Chapter 346, The Fall of the Fourth Mizukage. Zabuza wanted to stop Haku and Kinamaru from joining the battle. In his eyes, even if they had gained more power, they still lacked the corresponding battle experience. Rushing recklessly into a fight against the Three Tails would only create more trouble for him. More importantly, he didn't want to see Haku and Kinamaru lose their lives here. Even though they were from Hidden Mist Village's bloodline limit clans, they had never been protected by the village. Instead, they had been victims of the Blood Mist policy. In this situation, it was Hidden Mist Village that had wronged them, not the other way around. Just as Zabuza was about to persuade them to retreat, the Three Tails suddenly moved. Its massive body shifted as it charged toward him. Opening its mouth wide, it fired a water sphere the size of a house. The water sphere tore through the air with a sharp screech, speeding toward them. This was the C-rank water style, iron cannonball technique, a jutsu naturally wielded by the Three Tails. While a normal iron cannonball wouldn't be threatening, the power of a jutsu never depended on its rank alone. Its effectiveness was determined by chakra quantity and nature transformation. Facing the incoming attack, Zabuza stepped forward, placing himself in front of Haku and Kinemaru, sword in hand. He could already feel the immense power of the iron cannonball, but he still chose to shield them. Even if he were to be severely injured, it was better than letting them die. Haku and Kinemaru didn't try to stop him. Instead, they exchanged a glance and activated their bloodline limit. Forming hand seals, Haku pressed his palm to the ground. Drawing from the moisture in the air, he created an ice wall, 10 meters tall and 1 meter thick. The massive ice wall barely withstood the impact, cracks spreading across its surface. Meanwhile, Kinemaru's body flickered to the three-tailed side. Like a sharpened spike, he drove his bone blade deep into the beast's foot, staining the ground with its blood. As the attack against Zabuza was intercepted, Haku jumped onto the ice wall, summoning massive ice spears and launching them toward the three tails. He wasn't aiming to kill it, his goal was to force it into a water-rich environment, where he could freeze it completely. Sensing the increasing chill in the air, the three tails' expression changed. Despite its title as a walking natural disaster, it could still feel how ice style restrained its power. If it didn't eliminate this ice style user quickly, it might lose its freedom again. Just as the three tails began forming a tailed beast ball, another sharp pain shot through its leg. Kinemaru, despite his small size, was managing to wound the tailed beast, even posing a real threat to its life. Watching Haku and Kinemaru fight head-on against a tailed beast, Zabuza was stunned. Nearby, Maestro Mumandao, who had been preparing to assist, also froze in shock. All the Hidden Mist Village ninjas turned their eyes toward the two young warriors, their expressions filled with disbelief. As Hidden Mist Village shinobi, they were no strangers to ice style and Shikatsumaku. In both the Yuki clan and the Kaguya clan, once a shinobi awakened their bloodline limit, they could easily surpass Geinin and Chunin ranks, reaching Jonin level within the village. However, even Jonin struggled to wield techniques of this scale, let alone face the three tails head-on. The power Haku and Kinemaru displayed was comparable to the leaders of their respective clans in the past. But the most terrifying part? They were still just children. Their potential for growth was immense. Reaching the Kage level in the future wasn't impossible at all. Realizing this, everyone turned to Zabuza. They hadn't forgotten how Haku and Kinemaru had addressed him as their leader. No one had expected that after his failed assassination attempt on a Mizukage, Zabuza had secretly raised two monsters like them. Maestro Mummy approached Zabuza, her expression unreadable. Zabuza, why didn't you send these two out from the start? With their help, we might not have needed to fight the fourth Mizukage at all. Or? She smirked. Were these two meant for us instead? Her words were spoken half in jest, but the suspicion in her tone was real. This was exactly what Ao was thinking. Seeing Haku and Kinemaru's strength, they fully realized Zabuza's cunning. He had secretly nurtured two bloodline limit geniuses, not just to deal with the fourth Mizukage, but to secure his own influence within Hidden Mist Village. Recruiting them had been simple. Both of their clans had been exterminated under the fourth Mizukage's orders. By offering them revenge, Zabuza had easily won them over, making them his most valuable assets, and potentially his key to becoming the next Mizukage. They had underestimated Zabuza, and underestimated the man who dared to attack the Mizukage. At this moment, Zabuza was still in shock. He looked toward Haku and Kinemaru, unsure how to explain this to Maestro Mumandao. When he had taken them in, they had barely been Geinin level. Even after training them, he had only expected them to reach Chunin strength at best. But now, they had completely surpassed Jonin, even approaching elite Jonin level. Still, despite their newfound power, their combat style remained inexperienced. Something wasn't adding up. With a puzzled expression, Zabuza turned toward Juzobiwa, who happened to be looking at him at the same time. Meeting each other's gaze, they immediately understood the truth. Byakuya. Under normal circumstances, Haku and Kinemaru's strength shouldn't have improved so drastically. But over the past few days, they had been staying near Byakuya. And that man didn't follow normal logic. If Byakuya had intervened, then it wasn't surprising at all that Haku and Kinemaru had grown so powerful in such a short time. But if they had gained Byakuya's power, didn't that mean Zabuza had lost his bet with Byakuya? Didn't this prove that Hidden Mist Village couldn't handle this crisis on its own? Realizing his loss, Zabuza didn't dwell on it for long. Haku and Kinemaru had already made their deal with Byakuya, and now they were fighting against the Three Tails. He couldn't afford to hold them back. More than that, he refused to be an incompetent leader. Glancing around at the Hidden Mist Village ninjas, Zabuza's expression turned cold. There's no point in discussing the past. Our goal is to defeat the Three Tails and save the fourth Mizukage. With that, he gripped his sword and charged toward the Three Tails. Maitre Mummy watched his back in confusion before exchanging a glance with Ao. Then, without hesitation, they followed after him. Zabuza was right, now wasn't the time for mistrust. The only way to end this battle was to defeat the Three Tails and free the fourth Mizukage. With Haku and Kimimaro, two elite jonin, joining the fight, the battle's balance shifted in Hidden Mist Village's favor. The Three Tails was driven into a lake, where Haku froze the entire surface, trapping its limbs. Kimamaro's bone spikes pinned it in place, preventing it from escaping. Zabuza, Maitre Mummy, and the other Hidden Mist Village ninjas then launched a coordinated assault, draining the beast's stamina and chakra. Finally, after half an hour of battle, the Three Tails shrunk and vanished, leaving behind the exhausted fourth Mizukage, kneeling on the ice. Are you the Mizukage, or someone else? The fourth Mizukage lifted his head. His eyes showed neither confusion nor surprise. He sighed lightly and said, I am the sinner of Hidden Mist Village. You may call me whatever you wish. Zabuza and Maitre Mummy exchanged puzzled looks. As if understanding their confusion, the fourth Mizukage explained. For all these years under the control of the masked man, I was indeed trapped by his Ganjutsu, but that doesn't mean I was completely unaware of what was happening in the outside world. I personally reinstated the Blood Mist policy. I personally ordered the extermination of the bloodline clans. I issued numerous commands that harmed Hidden Mist Village. Even if those orders were ultimately the masked man's doing, the blame still falls on me. Zabuza took a step forward, staring at the fourth Mizukage. Since you admit it's your fault, what do you plan to do now? Announce to the world that you were just a manipulated puppet, then commit seppuku? Seppuku is a kind of samurai suicide where a samurai, warrior honorably commits suicide. The fourth Mizukage shook his head. Suicide won't atone for my mistakes. The village is already in chaos and cannot afford to lose its Mizukage. The Three Tails within me is also unstable. For now, I have no choice but to remain in Hidden Mist Village. Besides, we must deal with the threat of the masked man. He could return at any moment. Hearing that the fourth Mizukage had no intention of committing suicide, Zabuza's expression shifted slightly. He snorted coldly but ultimately said nothing more. The fourth Mizukage was right, Hidden Mist Village still needed its Mizukage. If he were to die now, the village would fall into further turmoil as people fought over the Mizukage's position. Maitre Mummy and Ao had no objections to keeping the fourth Mizukage alive. They had not personally suffered under his rule and understood his importance to the village. With both sides reaching an agreement, the fourth Mizukage looked toward Zabuza and the others, his tone somber. To be honest, after Kisame's defection, I thought I would never escape the masked man's control. I never expected Maitre Mummy to grow so strong so quickly, nor for Zabuza to have trained two promising bloodline limit users. Even Juzobiwa returned to the village at a critical moment. You are all heroes who have saved Hidden Mist Village. Faced with the fourth Mizukage's praise, no one reacted much. Suddenly, Zabuza and Maitre Mummy seemed to realize something. They turned to the fourth Mizukage and asked, Fourth, what did you just say? I said you are the heroes who saved the village. Zabuza shook his head and pressed further. No, before that, you mentioned a traitor. Are you saying another Hidden Mist Village ninja has joined the masked man? Kisame betrayed the village. Halfway through his sentence, Yagura's face changed slightly. He looked at Zabuza and Biwajuzo and asked. Before you infiltrated the Mizukage's office, did you deal with Kisame first? No. We never even encountered Kisame. The fourth Mizukage's face turned pale in an instant. His voice faltered as he said. If you didn't run into Kisame, and you didn't see the masked man, then where are they now? At those words, everyone froze, a chill creeping down their spines. Just then, a light breeze swept across the frozen lake, and a shadow appeared beneath the ice. A hand shot out, grabbing the fourth Mizukage's ankle and yanking him down toward the water. Already weakened, the fourth Mizukage had no strength to resist. He plunged into the icy lake, losing all ability to fight back. Just as the shadow was about to drag him away, Kimimaro intercepted them. Sharp bone spikes erupted from his body, clamping onto the fourth Mizukage and lifting him back to the lake's surface. With that done, Kimimaro turned to attack the shadowy figure. The figure glanced at Kimimaro before phasing through the ice and stepping onto the surface of the lake. It was none other than the mastermind behind the fourth Mizukage's control, the true ruler of Hidden Mist Village, Obito Uchiha. Now that he had reclaimed the fourth Mizukage, Obito found himself surrounded by the Hidden Mist Village ninja. Despite being outnumbered, he showed no sign of fear. He surveyed his surroundings before speaking in a mocking tone. You've done well. After much struggle, you've finally defeated my puppet. But tell me, what makes you think that just because you defeated a mere puppet, you have the right to challenge me? Do you believe in the strength of these bloodline remnants? Or are you relying on those weak little swords? Hearing Obito's taunts, Zabuza and Maitru Mummy's faces darkened. For Hidden Mist Village, nothing was more humiliating than having their Mizukage controlled by Genjutsu. If anything could be worse, it was the fact that they hadn't realized it for years. Seeing their grim expressions, Obito decided to twist the knife further. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you attacking? Are you too afraid to die? Or perhaps you fear your Mizukage's shadow? After all, for all these years, I was the true Mizukage. Yagura was nothing but my puppet. Zabuza sneered, countering. If you were truly that powerful, you wouldn't have needed to hide behind the Mizukage. And you certainly wouldn't have let me escape that day. You're not as strong as you claim to be. You only controlled the Mizukage through trickery, nothing more than a pathetic coward. You don't even have the guts to remove your mask and show us your true face. Zabuza's words sparked agreement among the surrounding Hidden Mist Village ninja. They quickly joined in, hurling insults at the masked man. That's right. You're just a coward who hides his face. If you really have the guts, take off your mask and show us who you are. Or is your face so hideous that you can't bear to show it? Obito, already irritated, turned red with anger at their jeers. But he couldn't remove his mask, he couldn't risk revealing his identity. Since he couldn't win with words, he would use force. In a flash, he vanished, reappearing right beside Zabuza, launching his attack. Chapter 347, Uzumaki? Facing Obito's attack, Zabuza gritted his teeth and swung his blade toward him. Obito merely flickered to the side, easily dodging the strike. With a sidestep, he closed the distance and delivered a punch to Zabuza's stomach. The powerful impact sent Zabuza stumbling back several meters before dropping to one knee, staring at Obito ahead. Obito hadn't even used his full strength, but if Zabuza had been at his peak, he might have been able to defend himself. However, after his battle with the fourth Mizukage, his stamina was down to almost nothing. He could still hold his own against weaker opponents, but against someone of Obito's caliber, he could only endure the blows. Seeing Zabuza injured, Haku and Kimimaro rushed to his side, helping him up before stepping in front of him to guard against Obito. Obito glanced at Haku's ice blade, then at Kimimaro's bone blade, his brows furrowing slightly. Something about them felt off, familiar, even, but he couldn't immediately place why. Engaging them in a few rapid exchanges, he quickly realized the truth. No wonder they felt familiar, they had white Zetsu attached to them. That traitor, Black Zetsu, must have transferred control of some white Zetsu units to Byakuya. Byakuya had then used white Zetsu's abilities to empower these two ninjas to fight against the fourth Mizukage, whom Obito had carefully cultivated. Did Byakuya really want to steal the credit that badly? The retrieval of the 3 tails and 6 tails was supposed to be Obito's task. Still, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The faster Byakuya collected the tailed beasts, the quicker the Eye of the Moon plan could proceed. And once the tailed beasts were secured, Byakuya's usefulness would end. Regaining his composure, Obito looked at the Hidden Mist Village ninjas before him. His objective had already been achieved, so there was no need to linger. However, taking a few Hidden Mist Village ninja down before leaving wasn't a bad idea. With that thought, Obito attacked again. This time, he activated his intangibility. No matter how much Haku's ice blade or Kimimaro's bone spears slashed at him, they couldn't touch him. Seeing this, Haku and Kimimaro became visibly shaken. With the enhancement of the wood-style seed, they thought they had become strong enough to compete at the highest level in Hidden Mist Village, strong enough to even fight against a tailed beast. But now, faced with a true mastermind, they couldn't even land a hit. Maitru Mummy gathered a large amount of acidic mist, hoping to bypass Obito's defenses, but he effortlessly dodged every attack. He was like a ghost, untouchable, and seemingly unreal. At that moment, after observing for a while, Al spoke up. The masked man's chakra has vanished. He likely possesses some sort of space-time ability, hiding his body in another dimension. That's why none of our attacks are landing. Maitru Mummy asked. Then how do we fight him? Al thought for a moment before answering. Space-time techniques aren't invincible. If he hides in another dimension, he can't attack either. As long as we keep our eyes on him and don't let up, he'll eventually be forced to return to this space. Hearing this, Obito's expression immediately darkened. What the hell is wrong with the ninja world these days? Why was it that every time he used a technique, someone could see through it? Was his space-time ability really that obvious? Not wanting to reveal the 5-minute limit of his intangibility, Obito voluntarily cancelled it. Walking into the middle of the group, he sighed lightly. Originally, I wanted to keep playing with you using my intangibility. But since you've figured it out, I'll have to keep it a secret, by killing all of you. With that, Obito raised his hand and activated wood style, piercing stakes, launching into close combat. Before Matrumami could even react, a wooden stake grazed her, tearing her clothes and leaving a deep scratch on her skin. Ow! Standing nearby, wasn't as lucky. His thigh was pierced straight through, crippling his mobility. In mere moments, half of the Hidden Mist Village shinobi collapsed, while the remaining few were too injured to fight. Haku and Kimimaro tried to retaliate, but they soon realized that the chakra in their wood-style seeds had been exhausted. The only ones left with any fighting strength were Biwajuzo and Zabuza. Looking at the battered shinobi around him, Obito sneered, "You talk big, but your strength is pitiful. If you don't have some secret trump card, I'll just kill each of you one by one and reclaim Hidden Mist Village. After all, for over a decade, your Mizukage has been nothing but my puppet." Saying this, Obito laughed, a loud, unrestrained, arrogant laugh. The Hidden Mist Village shinobi's expressions darkened. But at this point, they had lost nearly all their strength. Any further resistance would only land them on the rogue ninja list before their inevitable deaths. But if they lost here, Hidden Mist Village would return to the past. Nothing would change. The Bloody Mist policy would continue. Hidden Mist Village Academy students would still be forced into brutal survival battles. Teams of ninja would still distrust and betray one another. That was not the future they wanted. That was not what Hidden Mist Village should be. With this thought, Zabuza struggled to his feet. Dragging his sword behind him, leaving a trail of blood, he walked toward Obito. When he got close, he lifted his head, grinning as he said, "Don't underestimate my village. Even if the Mizukage becomes your puppet, there will always be a demon like me to chop off the puppet's head." Obito glanced at him and casually flicked his wrist, sending a wooden stake flying toward Zabuza. To him, killing Zabuza at this point was no different from crushing an ant, just a matter of choice. Zabuza's current state reminded him of himself back at the Kanabi Bridge. The sight made him feel sick. The ninja world's law is survival of the fittest. Any resistance before absolute power is meaningless. Only in dreams could a ninja become truly strong, only in dreams could true peace exist. But just as the wooden stake was about to hit Zabuza, a black-haired figure intercepted it midair. Zabuza looked at the newcomer in surprise, sighing before saying, "So, in the end, we still have to rely on you. I must have disappointed you, both me and Hidden Mist Village." The black-haired figure shook his head and replied, "You and the Hidden Mist Village shinobi have done well. You successfully lured out the masked man. Now, leave the rest to me. This is my fight with him. And the grudge between our clans." Pausing, the newcomer turned to Haku and Kimimaro, saying, "Haku, Kimimaro, here are some medical scrolls and medicine. Treat the injured and fall back." Haku and Kimimaro took the scrolls and medicine, then retreated to tend to the wounded. After finishing all this, the black-haired figure looked toward Obito in the distance and activated the teleportation jutsu. The black-haired figure was none other than Byakuya, who had been watching for quite some time. He had arrived near the battlefield as soon as Obito made his appearance. However, he didn't act immediately. Instead, he observed Obito and the Mist Ninjas, assessing their strength. Only when the Mist Ninjas were all defeated and Zabuza was about to be killed did Byakuya step in to save him. This way, he could maximize his favorability with Zabuza, making it easier to bring the Hidden Mist Village under his control. As he flashed to Obito's side, Obito furrowed his brows and locked eyes with Byakuya. He hadn't expected Byakuya to appear without any disguise this time, showing his true face in front of so many people. Did this move have some hidden meaning? After staring at each other for a few moments, Byakuya suddenly raised his voice. "Masked man, after hiding for so many years, you've finally shown yourself. Ever since our last encounter in Hidden Leaf Village, we've been searching for your whereabouts, from the Land of Fire all the way to the Land of Lightning. I never expected you to be hiding in Hidden Mist Village all this time, secretly controlling the 4th Mizukage. But now that the 4th Mizukage has been defeated and you're trapped here, it's time to settle the decades-long grudge between our two clans. Every last heir of Madara Uchiha must be eliminated." Obito's eyes flashed with confusion as he stared at Byakuya in disbelief. It was true that he was a successor to Madara, but had Byakuya lost his mind today? Why was he talking about eliminating Madara's heirs? There had never been any major feud between the Uchiha and the Uzumaki clans. Before Obito could think further, Byakuya had already charged at him, unleashing Advent of a world of flowering trees. Countless vines shot up from the ground, instantly transforming the lake into a dense forest, completely reshaping the terrain. Faced with Byakuya's attack, Obito dared not be careless. Byakuya had defeated him 3 times in the past. He was the one person in the ninja world who understood Kami almost as well as Obito himself. Was Byakuya planning to eliminate him today and execute the Eye of the Moon plan on his own? Clenching his teeth, Obito barely held his ground for a few exchanges before gradually regaining his composure. Taking advantage of the cover provided by advent of a world of flowering trees, he called out to Byakuya, "Byakuya, what exactly is your plan in Hidden Mist Village? If you tell me, I can cooperate with you." Byakuya lunged at Obito again, responding with a serious expression. "What, Byakuya? What plan? Evil successor of Madara Uchiha, I am here to eliminate you today. Your wicked schemes have threatened the entire ninja world. As a descendant of the Senju, I must remove this threat and restore peace to the world." Obito was speechless. After phasing through Byakuya's cutting sprigs technique, he frowned and said, "Byakuya, I remember you being an Uzumaki. Since when did you become a Senju? Besides, you've recruited so many Uchiha yourself. You're more like the head of the Uchiha than I am." Byakuya remained calm, looking at Obito with an indifferent expression. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Didn't Itachi Uchiha already wipe out the Uchiha clan? What does that have to do with me? Besides, as a Senju descendant, I have solid proof that you orchestrated the Nine Tails attack and controlled the Mizukage. I cannot betray the will of my ancestors by conspiring with Madara Uchiha's heir." Seeing Byakuya feign ignorance, Obito had no choice but to use his trump card. "If you keep pretending, I'll expose everything to Black Zetsu, and at the same time, I'll make sure the entire ninja world learns about Denzo's role in Shizui's disappearance." Hearing this, Byakuya paused and looked at Obito. "Masked man, if you expose the truth about Shizui, does that mean you're giving up on hunting the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? Or are you planning to quit Akatsuki and go solo?" "I'm not." Obito started to deny it, but then suddenly realized something. He frowned and said, "Then what exactly is your plan? With your intelligence network, you should know that Hidden Mist Village is under my control. If we wait for the right moment, I can make a move on the Three Tails and Six Tails and complete the organization's mission." Byakuya looked at Obito and said, "Your plan may seem perfect, but it has many flaws. The Three Tails Jinchuriki is the fourth Mizukage. If you attack him, you'll alert Hidden Mist Village. The successive disappearances of the tailed beasts will also raise alarms in the five great nations. When that happens, capturing the remaining tailed beasts will become much more difficult." Obito frowned, displeased. "Then what better method do you have? Why insist on targeting Hidden Mist Village? Don't you realize your actions have exposed me and the tailed beast plan? How am I supposed to carry out my missions now?" Byakuya continued. "Your identity was already compromised. In the future, I plan to let you and the tailed beast hunt be fully exposed to the five great nations so that the entire world knows an organization is secretly collecting the tailed beasts." "Why?" Obito stared at Byakuya, clearly displeased. To him, Byakuya was acting like a traitor. Byakuya smiled and said, "Once the hunt for the tailed beasts begins, how long do you think you can keep it hidden from the great nations? Rather than trying to cover it up, it's better to expose the plan early and direct their attention toward you. This time, I'm confronting you as a Senju to ensure the ninja world sees us as enemies. That way, when you attack the Jinchuriki in the future, I can use the opportunity to infiltrate the five great nations from within. The safest place is often the most dangerous one. The five great nations would never expect this." Obito fell into deep thought after hearing Byakuya's plan. It was indeed a clever strategy, but there was one glaring issue. Why should he be the one lurking in the shadows, drawing all the hatred as Madara's successor, while Byakuya could walk in the light, becoming a hero who stood against the Eye of the Moon plan? As if sensing Obito's thoughts, Byakuya spoke casually. "Honestly, I don't want to pretend to be a Senju and act as a spy in the five great nations either. But the problem is, you attacked Hidden Leaf Village, controlled the fourth Mizukage, and just so happened to be the heir of Madara. You're the perfect scapegoat to attract all the hatred." Pausing for a moment, Byakuya added, "Don't hesitate. Didn't you want to become the greatest contributor to the organization? This is your best opportunity." Obito remained silent for a long time before finally speaking. "If you had this plan all along, why didn't you tell me earlier? Do you not trust me?" Byakuya nodded and replied matter-of-factly. "Of course, I don't trust you. I've always worked with you using my real identity, while you've always hidden behind a mask. I don't even know who you really are. Are you just Madara's successor, or Madara himself? My identity doesn't matter. I've already forgotten my past." Obito gazed at Byakuya and, in a quiet voice, asked, "And besides, I may wear a mask, but at least I know I am an Uchiha. But you, an Uzumaki, are you really an Uzumaki?" Chapter 348, The Bond Between Senju and Uchiha. Byakuya's identity was that of an orphan from the Uzumaki clan, wandering in the land of rain. After joining Akatsuki, he quickly became the organization's second-in-command and, in the battle against Henzo of the Salamander, rose to the position of Akatsuki's leader. All along, Byakuya had identified himself as a descendant of the Uzumaki clan. His vast chakra reserves and natural talent in both ninjutsu and genjutsu further confirmed his Uzumaki heritage. Aside from lacking red hair, Byakuya possessed all the traits of an Uzumaki ninja, making him a true descendant of the clan. However, just now, Obito had begun to suspect him. He doubted whether Byakuya was truly an Uzumaki. It was true that the Uzumaki clan was known for their immense chakra reserves. However, another clan in the ninja world also shared this trait, the Senju, who had been entangled with the Uchiha for 1,000 years. The Senju were distant relatives of the Uzumaki, also possessing vast chakra reserves. Moreover, compared to the Uzumaki, the Senju had even greater talent in ninjutsu and taijutsu, otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to suppress the Uchiha for nearly a millennium. The reason Obito began to doubt Byakuya's identity was simple. Byakuya's talent in wood style was far too extraordinary. He had surpassed even Obito, Uchiha, and had even outperformed most white Zetsu. Such talent was beyond the capability of an Uzumaki, it was a power only a Senju could possess. Once the seed of doubt was planted, Obito couldn't stop questioning whether Byakuya had been telling the truth. His mind was filled with countless possibilities. According to Madara's accounts from the past, Tobirama Senju had always plotted against the Uchiha, keeping a close watch on the happenings of the ninja world. With Tobirama's abilities, he must have noticed that Madara had faked his death and was still lurking in the ninja world. However, before Tobirama could take action, he was taken down by Kinkaku and Kinkaku of Hidden Cloud's village. Of course, Tobirama might not have actually died at the hands of Kinkaku and Kinkaku. It was also possible that Madara himself had eliminated this formidable enemy of the Uchiha. Yet, even Madara had not foreseen that after Tobirama's death, another cunning Senju would inherit his will, continuing to oppress the Uchiha in the ninja world, repeatedly interfering with his plans, and even infiltrating the Eye of the Moon plan. That person was none other than the dark-hearted and enigmatic Byakuya Senju. Shaking off his scattered thoughts, Obito continued watching Byakuya, ready to flee at a moment's notice. He knew he wasn't Byakuya's match, but with Kami at his disposal, no one in the ninja world could stop him from escaping. As Obito stared at Byakuya, Byakuya also fixed his gaze on him. When Obito remained motionless and directly questioned whether he was truly an Uzumaki, Byakuya furrowed his brows and responded. Masked man, why do you doubt that I am an Uzumaki? Do you think I am a Senju? I, too, have had such doubts. The Senju and Uzumaki have intermarried for generations, so it's possible that I carry Senju blood as well. However, whether Senju or Uzumaki, both clans have already perished. The only way to avoid extinction is to wield the strongest power in the ninja world. Let's continue executing our plan, I don't want to waste any more time. Hearing this, Obito did not completely set aside his suspicions, but he still nodded. He didn't want to lose Byakuya as an ally, nor did he particularly care whether Byakuya was Senju or Uzumaki. To him, as long as a ninja could hunt tailed beasts, they were a useful ninja. After some simple medical treatment, the Hidden Mist Village ninjas were not fully recovered but could at least walk. They raised their heads and looked toward the battlefield where Byakuya and Obito were fighting. When they saw the massive forest that had risen from the ground, their eyes filled with shock. As ninjas from Hidden Mist Village, they were naturally familiar with the wood-style bloodline limit, once wielded by the god of shinobi, Senju Hashirama. However, wood style had supposedly been lost for decades. How had it suddenly reappeared? And not just with one user, there were two. One was the masked man who had manipulated the Mizukage. Judging from his Sharingan, he was likely an Uchiha. The other was Byakuya, a high-ranking figure from Hidden Rain Village. How had he also mastered wood style? From what Byakuya had said, it seemed he had been hunting the masked man for years. Unable to make sense of the situation, Maitru Mummy turned to Zabuza and Juzobiwa. Her instincts told her that they knew the truth but had been hiding it. She asked. Zabuza, Juzo, you don't seem surprised by Byakuya's appearance at all. Do you know something? Have you been keeping secrets from us? Juzobiwa remained silent, but Zabuza sighed lightly and said. This has nothing to do with you. It's a deal between me and Byakuya-sama. In the end, it comes down to my own weakness, that's why Byakuya-sama had to intervene. Byakuya-sama? It seems your deal with him is quite extraordinary. Narrowing her eyes, Mai looked toward the distant battlefield where Byakuya and Obito were fighting. With a casual tone, she said. Tell me about this deal. At this point, there's no reason to hide it anymore. Zabuza took a deep breath before explaining. I gambled the entire Hidden Mist Village on a bet with Byakuya. If we managed to rescue the fourth Mizukage and defeat the mastermind behind the scenes, he would form an alliance with the new Mizukage. But if I failed, he would take action against the masked man, and all of Hidden Mist Village would become his subordinates. Upon hearing this, Mai took a sharp breath. Zabuza, are you an idiot for betting the entire village? Do you even have the authority to make that decision for Hidden Mist Village? Zabuza glanced at her and replied. I had no choice. If Byakuya hadn't informed me about the 4th Mizukage being under Genjutsu control, I never would have known. Besides, even if I lost the bet, Hidden Mist Village would only be swapping one master for another. From being ruled by a masked man hiding in the shadows to being under the command of Akatsuki's leader, Byakuya. Mai fell silent for a few seconds. She could understand Zabuza's reasoning and wondered if he even had another option. Perhaps he had no choice but to make this deal with Byakuya. And looking at the current situation, if Byakuya hadn't intervened, they all would have died. Hidden Mist Village alone was no match for the masked man. At that moment, Mai suddenly thought of something. She turned to Haku and Kimimaro, then asked. So their power isn't their own either? That's why you were so surprised. Zabuza smiled bitterly and nodded. You guessed right. Haku and Kimimaro's strength also came from Byakuya. Just days ago, they were only at Chunin level. After hearing Zabuza's explanation, not only Mai but even Ao fell silent. One man controlled the Mizukage with Genjutsu, while another could temporarily grant Chunin the strength of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. How had such powerful figures emerged in the ninja world, treating even the 5 Kage as mere pawns? Mai and Ao exchanged glances and sighed simultaneously, feeling a deep sense of unease. A few minutes later, as the ground trembled violently, Byakuya and Obito emerged from the wood-style forest, appearing in an open space. Obito's clothing was in disarray, and his movements seemed frantic. He glared at Byakuya with murderous intent, as if he wouldn't rest until he tore him apart. Compared to Obito, Byakuya was in much better condition. He held his sword and pointed it at Obito, speaking righteously, Evil masked man, your scheme in Hidden Mist Village has already been foiled by me. If you still refuse to surrender, are you planning to be completely cut down by my blade? Obito's expression flickered, and he let out a cold snort. Easy for you to say, but if you really could kill me, would you have waited until now? With my space-time abilities, I stand in an invincible position. I will never lose. Obito grinned. But you are different. If you fail even once, you lose completely. You have no chance to escape. Byakuya's expression changed slightly, but he soon smiled. Unfortunately for you, you don't have the strength to defeat me. In all our clashes, you've never won even once. Every time, you've been forced to flee in embarrassment. Hearing this, Obito's face twitched. He knew that he and Byakuya were playing a game of wits, but the truth was, he really had never won against Byakuya. Every single time, he had been defeated, this time was no different. Cursing Byakuya in his mind, Obito gritted his teeth and said, Fine, I lost to you this time. But do you really think you've won? Aside from defeating me, what else have you gained? Byakuya looked at him calmly. Thwarting your plans is my greatest victory. Obito sneered. Is that so? Do you really think you've won? Guess what? I knew about Hidden Mist Village's movements these past few days. Do you think I didn't notice those ridiculous little insects sneaking around? Do you know why I didn't stop them? Byakuya's face darkened. You knew I was hiding nearby? Obito smirked, his gaze filled with meaning. While you were busy in Hidden Mist Village, I took a little trip. I attacked Utakata, the Jinchuriki of the 6 tails. Of the 2-tailed beasts in Hidden Mist Village, I've already secured one. And as for the other, don't think you can protect it either. With that, Obito's figure flickered as he rushed toward the 4th Mizukage. Haku and Kimimaro, who were guarding the 4th Mizukage, immediately moved to stop him, but Obito simply phased through their attacks with Kemyu and reached the Mizukage's side. He swiftly struck a few pressure points near the heart. The already weakened 4th Mizukage's vision darkened, and he completely lost consciousness. Just as Obito was about to take him away, Byakuya appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Obito glanced at Byakuya, let out a cold snort, and sank into the lake's waters, leaving behind a final remark before disappearing into the dark depths. Oi Senju scum, our battle has only just begun. I have plenty more surprises in store for you. Byakuya watched Obito's retreating figure, his face dark and unreadable. A storm of emotion swirled within him, and an ominous pressure radiated from his body, as if he could explode at any moment. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Zabuza and Mai quickly approached him, speaking carefully. Byakuya-sama, did the masked man escape? What about the 4th Mizukage's condition? The masked man was severely injured by me and fled. He won't be able to cause any trouble in the ninja world for a while. After a brief pause, Byakuya looked at the 4th Mizukage and let out a soft sigh. As for the Mizukage, his condition is dire. Not only was he under Genjutsu control, But Obito also left several hidden effects within his body. These effects will be difficult to remove. Even if he regains consciousness, his strength and lifespan will be greatly reduced. He likely only has a few months left to live. A few months. Hearing this, Zabuza and Mai were momentarily stunned. The fourth Mizukage had only just broken free from Obito's control, yet now he was nearing the end of his life. However, for them, this outcome was not entirely unacceptable. Given the severity of his injuries, even if he fully recovered, he would never return to his peak strength. And during his rule, the chaos of the Bloody Mist policy had wreaked havoc. Someone had to take responsibility for it. It couldn't be Obito, so the burden would have to fall on the fourth Mizukage himself. During the next Mizukage election, they would have to ensure that Lord Genji established a new rule. Even Hidden Mist Village's leader, the Mizukage, would be required to undergo regular inspections by sensory-type Jonin to prevent such incidents from happening again. As her thoughts settled, Mai sighed with emotion. We really owe Byakuya-sama for his help this time. If not for you, who knows how much longer the fourth Mizukage would have remained under control. We will make sure this never happens again. Zabuza also nodded. I will be more cautious from now on. I won't let something like this happen again. Byakuya looked at the two of them with a half-smile. Zabuza, Mai, do you really think the fourth Mizukage was the only puppet in Hidden Mist Village? This question made both Zabuza and Mai freeze, their expressions shifting to alarm. What do you mean? Are you saying there are other ninja in the village who are still under control? Byakuya shook his head. You two are still too slow at it. Let me ask you, while the fourth Mizukage continued the Bloody Mist policy, who was the one that first implemented it? The one who first started the Bloody Mist policy was the third Mizukage. Right? Before Zabuza and Mai could fully process the implications, an aged voice answered the question first. Upon hearing the voice, the assembled Hidden Mist Village ninja turned to look behind them. An elderly man, leaning on a cane and accompanied by a dozen Hidden Mist Village shinobi, stepped onto the battlefield. It was none other than Genji, the second most powerful figure in Hidden Mist Village and one of the village elders. At his arrival, Mai and the others immediately bowed in respect. Even Zabuza, usually defiant, inclined his head slightly as a gesture of acknowledgement. Genji walked up to Byakuya and studied him before speaking. So the rumors don't do you justice. You're much younger than I expected, heir of the Senju clan. Heir of the Senju clan? The surrounding shinobi were visibly shocked. In the ninja world, the name Senju carried immense weight. Even the highest-ranking officials of the great ninja villages would react cautiously upon hearing it. But wasn't Tsunade supposed to be the last surviving Senju? The rest of the Senju clan had either died on the battlefield or erased their identities. While some still carried Senju blood, none had the strength or influence to uphold the clan's legacy. Zabuza and Juzo were equally stunned. They knew Byakuya possessed wood style, but they hadn't expected him to be connected to the Senju clan, and even more surprising was that Genji acknowledged him as such. Byakuya looked at Genji and chuckled. Age doesn't mean much. I was simply fortunate to attain my current strength. Compared to you, Genji-sama, I still have a long way to go. But since you've shown yourself, I assume you've made up your mind about our cooperation? Chapter 349, The Masked Man's Conspiracy. Byakuya and Genji-sama knew each other and even secretly collaborated? Zabuza was briefly stunned upon hearing this, but after thinking it through, it made perfect sense. Byakuya might not have been the leader of Hidden Rain Village, but his strength was immense, easily ranking among the top 3 in the ninja world. Moreover, Akatsuki operated across multiple nations, and its leader held a status on par with the Mizukage. In Hidden Mist Village, the only ninja qualified to discuss cooperation with Byakuya, aside from the fourth Mizukage, was Elder Genji, who wielded Mizukage-level authority. It was entirely logical for them to communicate in secret. Meanwhile, Maitre Umami recalled something Genji had said to them a few days ago and suddenly understood. No wonder Genji-sama had instructed them to assist Zabuza. It turned out that the person supporting Zabuza from the shadows had reached an agreement with Genji to work together against the mastermind controlling the fourth Mizukage. Realizing this, Mai let out a breath of relief. She had thought Hidden Mist Village was just a bunch of fools being played, but in truth, everything had been under Genji's control all along. She had underestimated his foresight. Genji smiled at Byakuya's mention of their cooperation and extended his hand. The matter of cooperation can be discussed anytime. But Byakuya-sama, do you truly intend to negotiate in the middle of nowhere? Why not return to Hidden Mist Village with me? We will properly welcome you, and then we can discuss our cooperation in detail. Byakuya nodded. He had no reason to refuse Genji's invitation. Inside the elder's residence a short while later, Byakuya followed Genji to his residence. Since the Mizukage building had been destroyed, this was the only suitable place for their discussion. After some brief pleasantries, Genji dismissed everyone else. Ah hesitated, wanting to speak up, but Genji shot him a sharp look, forcing him to stay silent. With the fourth Mizukage gravely injured and unconscious, Genji was now the sole authority in Hidden Mist Village. If something happened to him, the village would be left leaderless. However, if Byakuya had truly harbored any ill intentions, he wouldn't have needed to arrange a private meeting, he could have acted at any time. Once the room was cleared, Byakuya and Genji sat facing each other. Seeing the questioning look on Genji's face, Byakuya spoke first. Helping your village defeat the masked man should be enough to prove my sincerity. Before we formally begin discussing cooperation, do you have any questions, Genji-sama? Genji raised his head and looked at Byakuya before asking, first question, are you a descendant of the Senju clan? Second, was the masked man truly a successor of Madara Uchiha? Third, why did the masked man control the Mizukage and abduct the Jinchuriki? What exactly is his goal? That's not one question, Byakuya said, giving him a glance. But he still answered. I am a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, but I do have Senju blood in my veins. I also inherited the Senju's teachings and awakened the wood-style bloodline limit. The Uzumaki clan. Genji muttered to himself. He had assumed Byakuya was a direct descendant of either Hashirama or Dobirama Senju, but it turned out he was merely a branch descendant from the Uzumaki side, not a true Senju heir. However, considering Byakuya had inherited the Senju legacy and awakened wood style, it wasn't inaccurate to call him a Senju successor. After all, among the many Senju, only Hashirama had ever naturally awakened wood style. With that in mind, Genji moved on to the next question. Who exactly is the masked man? Could he really be Madara Uchiha? Byakuya shook his head. I don't know his true identity. I can't say whether he's a Hidden Leaf Village Uchiha or a remnant of Madara's bloodline. But he is definitely not Madara himself. Most likely, like me, he's just a successor to that legacy. I've studied the historical records of all the great ninja villages. I know what Madara's true power was like. If he were really Madara, he wouldn't be skulking around in the shadows, he would have openly declared war on the entire ninja world. Hearing this, Genji nodded. He and Byakuya shared the same belief, the masked man could not possibly be the real Madara Uchiha. But then why had he gone through the trouble of controlling both the third and fourth Mizukage? This time, Byakuya answered before Genji could even ask. I've fought the masked man multiple times. His ambitions are far greater than just controlling Hidden Mist Village. Most likely, he saw the village as a base for a much bigger plan. Byakuya's casual remark about Hidden Mist Village being small made Genji twitch slightly, but he pressed on. Then what do you think his ultimate goal is? Byakuya thought for a moment before replying. His target is the entire ninja world. But since he lacks the power to take on the 5 great nations directly, he's been working to weaken them through various schemes. You remember the Nine Tails attack on Hidden Leaf Village, don't you? That was one of his moves against the Leaf Village. Genji nodded and continued asking. But even if he weakens the 5 great nations, that alone wouldn't allow him to rule the ninja world. No matter how weakened they are, he's still just one man. Byakuya took out a scroll he had been carrying and unrolled it. Of course, he couldn't do it alone. But what if he had the power of the tailed beasts? The Sharingan has the ability to control them. A single pair of Sharingan shouldn't be able to control all the tailed beasts. Genji pointed out. Besides, the masked man has controlled Jaguar for years, but he never used the 3 tails for anything extreme. And this time, he only captured the 6 tails. Byakuya pointed at the scroll, which depicted all 9 tailed beasts. I don't know exactly why he's collecting them, but I do know that the 2 tails, 6 tails, and 7 tails are already in his hands. He may have found a way to control multiple tailed beasts at once, or perhaps he has discovered a method to merge them together. A method to merge the tailed beasts? Genji's eyes widened in disbelief, his body trembling slightly. Even a single tailed beast can determine the outcome of a regional war. If he manages to collect all of them, wouldn't that mean he could annihilate entire villages with a single attack? Byakuya's face darkened, and he nodded. That is precisely why I've been hunting him down. If we let him succeed in gathering all the tailed beasts, the consequences will be unimaginable. I had hoped to take advantage of his presence in Hidden Mist Village to eliminate him once and for all. But unfortunately, he saw through my ambush, left ahead of time to hunt the 6 tails, and then used his intangibility to escape. Hearing this, Genji sighed, feeling regret for Byakuya's failed attempt. At that moment, Genji seemed to remember something and spoke up. Byakuya-sama, you just said the masked man's goal is the tailed beasts. Doesn't that mean he will return to Hidden Mist Village to target Yagura Itachi again? Byakuya nodded noncommittally. The masked man was injured in our recent battle, so he won't be a threat for the next few months. But beyond that, I can't say. That will be up to Hidden Mist Village to handle. Genji frowned, his expression turning anxious. Byakuya-sama, what do you mean by that? Didn't we agree to cooperate? Why is Hidden Mist Village suddenly left to deal with the masked man alone? Byakuya sighed in slight frustration. It's not that I don't want to help Hidden Mist Village, but I can't stay here indefinitely. If I leave my organization for too long, the masked man will likely target Akatsuki instead. Besides, I'm an outsider. I can't just remain in Hidden Mist Village without a proper reason. Genji picked up on Byakuya's unspoken intent and decided to make an offer. Byakuya-sama, would you be interested in becoming an honorary jonin of Hidden Mist Village? You would receive high-ranking privileges, and when encountering Hidden Mist Village shinobi, you would have the authority to give them orders. Byakuya shook his head. I have no real interest in becoming a Hidden Mist Village ninja. What I need are allies capable of dealing with the masked man. Instead, why don't you and Hidden Mist Village join Akatsuki? As a subordinate organization, Hidden Mist Village would receive protection, and I would naturally assign people to safeguard the fourth Mizukage. Having Hidden Mist Village join Akatsuki. Genji furrowed his brows. Byakuya saw his hesitation and continued. As a subordinate group, Hidden Mist Village would still function independently. Unlike other major organizations, we wouldn't interfere in your village's affairs. The only time we would exercise authority is when dealing with the masked man. Genji's expression relaxed upon hearing this. If it was merely a nominal affiliation with Akatsuki, then it wasn't entirely unacceptable. After all, Akatsuki wouldn't have the power to issue commands to Hidden Mist Village, making their relationship similar to that between the village and the Land of Water. After a moment of contemplation, Genji spoke. If we only need to follow Akatsuki's orders in matters concerning the tailed beasts, then both Hidden Mist Village and I are willing to join Akatsuki to fight against the masked man. As soon as Genji agreed, a crisp system notification rang in Byakuya's mind. Hidden Mist Village has joined Akatsuki. You have obtained Mastery of Water Style. Shadow Level Warrior Genji has joined Akatsuki. You have obtained, before the system could finish, Byakuya cut it off. Now was not the time to claim his rewards, there were still important matters to discuss with Genji. However, this also revealed how deeply Genji had hidden his true strength. He appeared to be an elderly man struggling to walk, yet he possessed shadow level power and could still fight for Hidden Mist Village one last time. Thinking about it, Byakuya wasn't surprised. Genji looked to be over 80 years old, an elder who had survived the Warring States period and had fought for decades until the establishment of Hidden Mist Village. If he hadn't reached shadow level strength, he would have perished long ago in the brutal ninja wars. This also explained why, despite Obito controlling the fourth Mizukage, Hidden Mist Village had never fully fallen under Akatsuki's control, because the real leader of the village was standing right in front of Byakuya. Obito's influence over Hidden Mist Village had always been incomplete because he hadn't gained Genji's allegiance. Only by convincing Genji to willingly join Akatsuki could Hidden Mist Village truly become a part of the organization and contribute to Byakuya's path to power. Had Byakuya attempted to support Zabuza or Amaterasu Mama as Mizukage a few weeks ago, he would have only gained rewards related to them. Even if the truth about the fourth Mizukage being controlled had been exposed, neither Zabuza nor Mai had the true authority to rule Hidden Mist Village. Pulling himself out of his thoughts, Byakuya extended his hand. As he firmly shook hands with Genji, he smiled. Genji-sama, joining Akatsuki will be the best decision you've ever made. Genji remained somewhat distracted, taking a deep breath before asking, Byakuya-sama, how does Akatsuki plan to deal with the masked man in the future? And how should we protect the Three Tails Jinchuriki? The masked man is elusive. Aside from when he hunts tailed beasts, he rarely reveals himself. But he will have to resurface eventually to complete his collection. We can set a trap by intentionally exposing a weakness and waiting for him to take the bait. Pausing, Byakuya then addressed the matter of the Three Tails. As for protecting the Jinchuriki, the fourth Mizukage is already in poor condition. Soon, he and the Three Tails will die together. No matter how powerful the masked man is, he can't do anything to a dead-tailed beast. Genji's mouth twitched. Byakuya's method of protection was certainly unique. After a moment of thought, Genji responded seriously. Hidden Mist Village cannot afford to lose the Three Tails. If the fourth Mizukage truly cannot hold on, I will have to consider selecting a new Jinchuriki. I assume you understand the importance of a Jinchuriki, Byakuya-sama? Byakuya nodded, his expression solemn. I know exactly what a Jinchuriki represents. If Hidden Mist Village were to lose its tailed beast, the other four great nations would see it as an opportunity to strike. It could even trigger another war. This is all the first Hokage's fault. If he hadn't distributed the tailed beasts, the great nations wouldn't rely on Jinchuriki so heavily. Hearing Byakuya criticize the first Hokage, Genji coughed lightly. Hashirama-sama's decision to distribute the tailed beasts had its merits. If not for that, the Ninja World Wars would have happened far more than just 3 times. Byakuya glanced at Genji and said. Or perhaps Hidden Leaf Village simply wanted to gain the upper hand and slowly consume the entire ninja world? Genji was momentarily speechless. After all, if Hashirama and Madara had truly decided to conquer the entire ninja world together, there might have only been one village left standing today. Seeing Genji's silence, Byakuya sighed softly. What's done is done. I don't want to see Hidden Leaf Village's parasites ruling the ninja world either. But if there's one thing I'd propose, it would be to hold a 5 Kage summit so that every major village is aware of the masked man's threat. If the 5 great nations work together, even he wouldn't be able to get his hands on any more tailed beasts. Genji imagined the scenario Byakuya described but then shook his head. Byakuya-sama, with all due respect, even if the other 4 great nations learned about the masked man's existence, they wouldn't take him seriously. To them, the greatest threat comes from each other, not from some mysterious figure in the shadows. Even in Hidden Mist Village's case, if we hadn't personally experienced the manipulation of both the 3rd and 4th Mizukage, we wouldn't have committed ourselves to fighting the masked man either. Byakuya sighed again after hearing Genji's words. I know. That's precisely why I haven't openly warned the other villages about him. Who knows when the 5 great nations will finally be able to sit down and have an honest discussion. Chapter 350, System Reward. After an anxious half-hour wait, Maître Umami and the others finally saw Byakuya and Genji appearing in the distance. Judging by their expressions, their conversation must have gone smoothly. It was possible that they had already reached some sort of agreement between Hidden Mist Village and Akatsuki, forming an alliance. Looking at Mai and Ao, the cane-wielding Genji slowly said. I had a pleasant conversation with Byakuya just now. I've decided to have Hidden Mist Village join Akatsuki and become a subordinate organization. Hearing this, Mai and Ao widened their eyes in disbelief. They knew that Zabuza had promised Byakuya that Hidden Mist Village would join Akatsuki, but they hadn't expected Genji to actually agree to it. Hidden Mist Village was one of the 5 great shinobi villages. How could it so easily become a subordinate village? Despite their doubts, they knew this was not the time to question it. The rest of the people present also found it hard to believe, unwilling to accept that Hidden Mist Village had become a subordinate village of Akatsuki. However, no one dared to challenge Genji's decision. Genji was an elder from the village's founding days, a stabilizing force akin to an anchor for Hidden Mist Village. Even if he were to clash with the Mizukage, most people would side with him. After all, the Mizukage might betray Hidden Mist Village, but Genji never would. Having secured the agreement for Hidden Mist Village to join Akatsuki, Byakuya didn't linger. Instead, he exchanged a glance with Juzobiwa and then left. Zabuza and Juzo noticed Byakuya's look and followed him. Once Byakuya and his group had left, Mai and Ao exchanged a glance before asking Genji. Genji-sama, why did you decide to have Hidden Mist Village join Akatsuki? Won't this damage the village's reputation? Genji let out a bitter smile. Mai, do you really think Hidden Mist Village still has any prestige left? His words left Mai speechless. She couldn't refute him. After enduring the Blood Mist policy and the purge of the bloodline clans, Hidden Mist Village had already become synonymous with chaos in the eyes of other nations. After a brief pause, Genji continued. Moreover, my decision for Hidden Mist Village to join Akatsuki was made after careful deliberation, not on a whim. Right now, even though the Mizukage has broken free from the masked man's control, the years of manipulation have left him physically and mentally drained. On top of that, he's seriously injured. There's no telling when he'll recover his combat strength. If I refused Byakuya's proposal and didn't make Hidden Mist Village a subordinate of Akatsuki, what would we do if the masked man attacked again? Do you think we could defeat him? No. Mai shook her head slightly, her tone filled with gloom. Genji glanced at her, sighed, and said. During our conversation, I also learned another piece of intelligence about the masked man from Byakuya. The masked man controlled the Mizukage and captured the 6 tails in order to collect tailed beasts and create a weapon capable of destroying entire villages in one strike. Only by joining Akatsuki and uniting every possible force can we stop his scheme. Hearing this, Mai's eyes widened before she quickly said. If the masked man's target is the 9-tailed beasts, we could bypass Akatsuki and cooperate with the 4 great shinobi villages. She stopped halfway, realizing how unrealistic her idea was. The 5 great shinobi villages were riddled with conflicts. Now that Hidden Mist Village had lost its tailed beast and was weakened, the other villages would only act like wild dogs scenting blood, eager to seize Hidden Mist Village's territory. Realizing this, Mai decisively changed the topic. Genji-sama, rather than discussing Hidden Mist Village joining Akatsuki, there's another important matter we need to address. Have you decided how to handle the Mizukage? At the mention of the 4th Mizukage, Genji's expression became somewhat distant. After a long silence, he finally said, "The village has taken many wrong turns over the years, and someone must be held responsible. That person can only be Yagura Itachi. Once he wakes up, I will hold him accountable and have him relinquish the position of Mizukage. As for the next Mizukage..." Genji fell silent again. Then, as if making a firm decision, he continued. "There is currently no suitable candidate for Mizukage, nor can I think of anyone to recommend. For now, we will leave the position vacant." "A vacant Mizukage position?" Mai and Dao exchanged glances, barely able to accept Genji's reasoning. In any other of the 4 great shinobi villages, a vacant Kage position would be unthinkable. But in Hidden Mist Village, the highest authority wasn't just the Mizukage. Genji himself wielded immense power. Genji could act in the Mizukage's stead, exercising the same authority. Besides, many in Hidden Mist Village had developed a fear of the Mizukage position. Both the 3rd and 4th Mizukage had seemed like polite young men before taking office, only to implement increasingly insane policies afterward. If the 5th Mizukage turned out the same way, Hidden Mist Village might be better off without one. With the Mizukage issue settled, Genji turned to Mai and Ao and said, "I almost forgot, Mai, Ao, like Zabuza, you two are also heroes who saved the village. While the 4th Mizukage is unconscious, the responsibility of leading the village falls on you." Hearing Zabuza's name, Mai frowned and asked, "Genji-sama, isn't Zabuza one of Byakuya's men, like Jazobiwa? Why are you making him part of the village's leadership?" Genji shook his head. "Jazobiwa belongs to Byakuya, but Zabuza still cares about the village. The fact that he was the first to raise his blade against the Mizukage proves that he is capable of leading." Then, looking at Mai with a teasing expression, he added, "Mai, you'd better work hard. I know you've always wanted to become Mizukage, but Zabuza has the same goal. Let's see which of you performs better and claims the title." Mai immediately tensed, clenching her fists. Becoming Mizukage requires more than courage and determination. Strength and wisdom are essential as well. "I will surpass Zabuza by a wide margin and become the next Mizukage. He's only fit to be the leader of the Anbu." At that moment, Ao suddenly recalled something and turned to Genji. "Genji-sama, there's one more issue. One of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, Kisame Hoshigaki, has defected. I suspect he might be working for the masked man." Genji nodded. "You're right. Kisame has indeed become the masked man's subordinate. However, neither Byakuya nor I know why he chose to join him. Given his betrayal, we will designate him as an S-rank rogue ninja. Any ninja below Jonin level who encounters him may flee without punishment." After leaving the elder's residence, Byakuya led his group to an open space. With a complicated expression, Zabuza turned to Byakuya and said, "Byakuya-sama, I never expected that I would lose our bet after all. You want me to swear loyalty now, right? From now on, I am your subordinate. As for Hidden Mist Village joining Akatsuki, Genji-sama has already agreed to your terms. I can't have Hidden Mist Village joining Akatsuki twice." Byakuya smiled and said, "You don't have to swear allegiance to me. I'm not that interested in you. I just appreciate the courage you showed in striking at the Mizukage. What really interests me are your 2 subordinates. After the Yuki clan and the Kaguya clan were wiped out, they are the last inheritors of Ice Style and Shikatsu Myaku. And the power they used when fighting the 3 Tails, that was something I temporarily granted them after they swore loyalty to me. They were willing to sacrifice their freedom just to save you." Hearing this, Zabuza fell silent for a few seconds, his expression complicated as he looked at Haku and Kimimaro. After a moment, he sighed softly. "I see. I never expected that the 2 kids I picked up on a whim would end up saving my life at a critical moment. Fate sure loves to toy with people. But with all of us becoming Byakuya-sama's subordinates, doesn't this feel a little chaotic?" Byakuya was slightly taken aback. Zabuza was actually making jokes now. Was it because the 4th Mizukage had been defeated? At that moment, Zabuza turned to Byakuya and asked, "Byakuya-sama, what do you plan to do with Haku and Kimimaro? Are you sending them to Hidden Rain Village as ninjas, or will they remain in Hidden Mist Village?" Byakuya thought for a moment before answering. "I plan to train them in Hidden Rain Village. Though they have the strength of Chunin, their foundation is still too weak. They need to return to the Ninja Academy for further studies. Once they reach Jonin level, they can graduate and take the Chunin exams." "You need Jonin level strength just to take the Chunin exams?" Zabuza wondered if he had misheard. Wasn't the Chunin exam supposed to select Chunin? Since when did you need to be that strong just to participate? This was absurd. That said, a period of school life wouldn't be bad for Haku and Kimimaro. From the moment they were born, neither of them had ever experienced a good life, nor did they have any friends their age. Perhaps the Ninja Academy could make up for their lost childhood. As for keeping Haku and Kinemaru by his side in Hidden Mist Village, Zabuza had considered it but ultimately abandoned the idea after careful thought. With his status as a hero of Hidden Mist Village, he could protect them, and with their talents, they could easily rise to the rank of Jonin. But Hidden Mist Village had once hurt them deeply. Forcing them to stay would be unfair to them. With that in mind, Zabuza turned to Haku and Kinemaru. "You two brats, listen well. From now on, obey Byakuya-sama and become his most loyal ninjas. If you don't, I won't forgive you." Haku and Kinemaru nodded repeatedly, promising to follow Byakuya's orders. After dealing with their arrangements, Byakuya took out a wood-style seed from his pocket and handed it to Zabuza. "Since you're my subordinate now, I'll give you a little gift. You already know the effects of this wood-style seed. When that masked man appears, use it. That way, I can rush over to support you. But forget about using it to compete for the 5th Mizukage position. Cheating your way into becoming Mizukage is too much. I don't want the next Mizukage to be a fraud." Zabuza carefully accepted the wood-style seed and tucked it away. At that moment, Juzobiwa walked over, handing Kubika Ribicho to him. "Zabuza, as we agreed, Kubika Ribicho is yours now. Take good care of it and feed it plenty of fresh blood. I don't actually need Kubika Ribicho. There are other ninja swords in the village." Juzo glanced at Zabuza and said, "Kubika Ribicho belongs to Hidden Mist Village. I'm no longer a ninja of Hidden Mist Village. It's better for you to keep it. If you really don't want to use it, just store it at home. Either way, I'm not taking it back." After a brief exchange, Byakuya left Hidden Mist Village with Juzo, Haku, and Kinemaru. Everything that needed to be done had been completed. It was time to leave. A few hours later, after they had departed from Hidden Mist Village and boarded a ship leaving the Land of Water, Byakuya sat on a cushioned seat, finally finding time to check his system rewards. Kage-level powerhouse Genji has joined Akatsuki. Hidden Mist Village has automatically become part of Akatsuki. You have obtained the complete water-style ninjutsu collection, advanced water-style secret techniques, mastery of water-style, and a large amount of chakra. Byakuya glanced at the system panel and found that these rewards were similar to what he had received when he visited Hidden Sand Village. The only difference was that in Hidden Sand Village, he had gained wind-style mastery, whereas here, he had obtained water-style mastery. Did that mean Hidden Sand Village's wind-style expertise was inferior to Hidden Mist Village's water-style? After thinking it through, Byakuya realized the key to the issue. Hidden Mist Village specialized in water-style and had many jonin proficient in it. Genji himself had mastered many water-style techniques. As for Hidden Sand Village, that was a land of magnet-style users and puppet masters. What did they have to do with wind-style? Honestly, even Hidden Sand Village's strongest wind-style user, Temari, was nowhere near the level of Denzo or Naruto Uzumaki. Upon claiming his rewards, a flood of water-style knowledge filled Byakuya's mind. He had now fully mastered the nature transformation of water-style, and his chakra reserves had increased by about a ton. After digesting these rewards, Byakuya looked at his system panel. Name, Byakuya, age, 22, current affiliation, Akatsuki, chakra nature, lightning, water, earth, wind, fire, yang, yin, ninjutsu, clonejutsu, basic kunai throwing, mastery of wind style, mastery of water style, mastery of paper style, proficiency in wood style, transformation jutsu, spore technique, mayfly technique, bloodline limit, basic wood style, basic yin-yang style, magnet style, bloodline, Azura, Indra, personal evaluation, peak Kage level. Can easily crush most ninjas, but against true powerhouses, even escaping would be extremely difficult. After scanning the system panel, Byakuya found that there wasn't much change. He was strong, but not strong enough. His current power level was still far from reaching a true breakthrough. To improve further, he had to turn his attention to Hidden Lee Village and the Nine-Tailed Beasts. That was where the real powerhouses were gathered. Chapter 351, Return and the Cursed Seal. 2 weeks later, Byakuya and Juzo returned to Hidden Rain Village with their group. Feeling the damp and cold air, both Byakuya and Juzobiwa unexpectedly felt a sense of security. Perhaps it was because this was the base of the Akatsuki, a place filled with like-minded comrades. After taking a moment to appreciate their return, Byakuya instructed Juzo to report to Nagato. Meanwhile, he took Haku and Kinemaru to the Hidden Rain Village Tower to discuss their placement with Yahiko. Before long, Byakuya skillfully pushed open the office door and saw Yahiko warming his hands with a thermos cup. Yahiko looked up at Byakuya, then at Haku and Kinemaru behind him, and smiled. "Byakuya, didn't you go to Hidden Mist Village with Juzo? Why did you bring back 2 kids? Don't tell me you just picked them up on the way? It's pretty much the same as picking them up." Byakuya admitted with a nod. Then he introduced them. This is Haku, a ninja of the Yuki clan who has awakened the Ice-style bloodline limit. The other is Kaguya Kimimaro, who has awakened the Shikatsu Yaku. Hearing this, Yahiko was slightly surprised. Ice-style and Shikatsu Yaku. Aren't those Hidden Mist Village's bloodline limits? You brought them here, does Hidden Mist Village not mind? Hidden Mist Village won't have an opinion. And even if they did, they wouldn't dare express it. Byakuya said with a pause. These two are the last surviving members of the Yuki and Kaguya clans, both of which were wiped out by Hidden Mist Village. I brought them here to enroll them in the Ninja Academy for training. Upon understanding the situation, Yahiko let out a relieved sigh. He had genuinely worried that Byakuya might have kidnapped them, especially considering how Byakuya had previously picked up half of the Uchiha clan. With that in mind, Yahiko chuckled. You want them to train in the Ninja Academy? That's easy. You could have just gone to Konan directly. She's the one managing the academy, so enrolling a couple of transfer students is no big deal. Byakuya shook his head. They aren't ordinary transfer students. Both of them already have the strength of Chunin, so they'll need specialized training. Plus, Kimimaro has the Kaguya clan's genetic disease, so he'll need to visit the root base regularly for treatment. Chunin level? No wonder you're informing me about them. Yahiko remarked, glancing at Haku and Kimimaro. He quickly wrote a note and handed it to Byakuya. I'll have people register their identities. Don't worry. Byakuya took the note and created a wood clone to take Haku and Kimimaro to get registered. Once they left, Yahiko turned to Byakuya's real body. Byakuya, how did your mission in Hidden Mist Village go? You didn't install another puppet leader there, did you? If you keep this up, I'll start thinking that all the 5 Kage will become your puppets one day. Puppet leader? What are you talking about? Byakuya frowned. Seisaori is Chio's grandson, and he saved Hidden Sand Village from Shukaku. If he wasn't given the position of Kazekage, were they supposed to hand it back to Raza, the guy who ordered his own son and brother-in-law to be sacrificed? Besides, wouldn't it be good for us if I actually could control all the Kage? Yahiko sighed, rubbing his forehead. Byakuya made a fair point, but he still wanted to hear the details of the mission. Alright, enough dodging the question. Tell me exactly what happened in Hidden Mist Village. Since Yahiko asked so directly, Byakuya didn't hold back. After organizing his thoughts, he began explaining. I originally planned to support Juzo in becoming Mizukage. But on the way, I encountered Zabusa, who had failed to assassinate the 4th Mizukage. From him, I learned about the situation with Yagura. After listening to Byakuya's report, Yahiko frowned. Byakuya's original plan was to help Juzo take power, but instead, he ended up collaborating with Genjutsu, leading to Hidden Mist Village's integration into Akatsuki as an ally. Byakuya had, once again, demonstrated his overwhelming strength. But what disturbed Yahiko was the revelation that the 4th Mizukage had been under someone else's control. And the one behind it was the masked man. The name and description sounded eerily familiar, like something he had heard before. Then it hit him, this was the same masked man who had attacked Hidden Leaf Village during the Nine Tails incident and later manipulated Itachi Uchiha into wiping out his clan. Why had this person also infiltrated Hidden Mist Village? As if reading Yahiko's thoughts, Byakuya continued. I found it strange as well. I don't understand why the masked man would want to control Hidden Mist Village. However, it was precisely because of Yagura's mind control that I was able to negotiate with Genjutsu. Using the masked man as a common enemy, I convinced Hidden Mist Village to join Akatsuki. Yahiko thought for a few moments, then asked. And what about the tailed beasts? Wasn't your main goal to collect them? Now that you've saved the 4th Mizukage, how will you handle that? 6 Tails was already taken by the masked man. As for 3 Tails, Yagura is heavily injured, so it won't be long before it's released. When that happens, we'll be able to capture it. Hearing this, Byakuya clenched his fist. And continued. But what I don't understand is, why is the masked man collecting tailed beasts? We have the Rinnegan and the Judo statue, so we can revive the 10 Tails. But why does he need them? Could it be that he also wanted to revive the 10 Tails? At this thought, Byakuya and Yahiko exchanged a heavy look, both realizing the implications. After a moment of silence, Yahiko asked. Byakuya, I think the masked man is after the tailed beasts as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have attacked Hidden Leaf Village or used Genjutsu to manipulate Yagura. He paused, then, in a doubtful tone, asked. By the way, is it true that the masked man is a successor of Madara Uchiha, and that you are the heir of the Senju clan? Are you really a descendant of the Senju? After all, only the Senju can use wood style. Byakuya sighed. I'm not entirely sure. I might be a descendant of the Senju, but I've always believed I was from the Uzumaki clan. But it doesn't really matter. Both the Senju and the Uzumaki have already been wiped out. Collecting himself, Byakuya continued. Yahiko, you were right to be suspicious. The masked man might have deliberately spread information about the Ten Tails' power to manipulate us into gathering the tailed beasts for him. Yahiko nodded in agreement. That's very possible. He planted those rumors so you would focus on capturing the tailed beasts. Then, once you had them all, he could strike and take them from us. If you hadn't gone to Hidden Mist Village, we might have never realized this. After a moment of thought, Yahiko said seriously. Byakuya, we can't let the masked man get his way. Maybe we should stop collecting the tailed beasts for now. I'm worried that continuing will lead to an all-out confrontation with him. If we lose. His words made Byakuya narrow his eyes. Once we've started gathering the tailed beasts, we can't just stop. Besides, the masked man's goal isn't just the tailed beasts, he might also target Nagato. To revive the Ten Tails, he needs both the Jido statue and the Rinnegan. Right now, we have two tailed beasts, the Rinnegan, and the Jido statue. We have no reason to hand the Ten Tails over to someone else. Even if the masked man does have some scheme, we can just crush him directly. Yahiko remained silent for a long time, replaying Byakuya's words in his mind. With Akatsuki's current strength, there was no real reason to fear the masked man. Even without counting Byakuya and Nagato, who were Kage-level powerhouses, the rest of Akatsuki's members were strong enough to surpass any of the 5 great shinobi villages. However, Yahiko wasn't worried about losing the Ten Tails, he was more concerned about Byakuya and Nagato. If the masked man could control the 4th Mizukage without anyone noticing, then controlling Byakuya and Nagato in the same way wasn't out of the question. It was all too dangerous. Akatsuki had already grown powerful, and if they continued on this path, they could eventually form a massive alliance spanning half the shinobi world. At that point, the strength and influence of the alliance would allow them to gradually absorb the major villages of Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Leaf Village, and Hidden Clouds Village without shedding a drop of blood, eventually unifying the entire shinobi world. But after much deliberation, Yahiko ultimately chose not to voice his concerns. If Byakuya knew what Yahiko was thinking, he would have simply scoffed. Unifying the shinobi world through alliances? That would require an immortal and undying leader. The only reason Byakuya had been going this route was that he could gain system rewards by bringing villages into the alliance. But true integration of the shinobi world would require a war on the scale of the past 3 great ninja wars. Only a common enemy that threatened the entire world would force the villages to set aside their differences and unite. After completing the identity registration for Haku and Kimimaro, Byakuya brought them back to Akatsuki's base. Compared to Hidden Rain Village, the atmosphere at Akatsuki's base was much heavier. Even the patrolling ninja gave off an overwhelming pressure that weighed on Haku and Kimimaro. Stepping into the Akatsuki laboratory, Byakuya found Orochimaru, who was clad in a white lab coat. Due to his nature, Orochimaru rarely stayed at Akatsuki's base, often wandering the shinobi world in search of suitable experimental materials. This time, he had come back because Byakuya had specifically summoned him. And Byakuya's reason for calling Orochimaru was simple, he wanted him to meet Haku and Kimimaro. With their rare, nearly extinct bloodline limit, Orochimaru was bound to be interested. Hearing the approaching footsteps, Orochimaru turned and looked at the 3 of them. His gaze lingered on Haku and Kimimaro for a moment before settling on Byakuya. Then, he slowly spoke. Byakuya-sama, these 2. They are the last inheritors of Ice Style and Shikatsu Myaku? Byakuya nodded and said. That's right. They are Haku and Kimimaro, the last surviving wielders of Ice Style and Shikatsu Myaku. As for this man here, he is one of the 3 legendary Sannin, the infamous Orochimaru. He is also Akatsuki's top researcher. Orochimaru? Upon hearing the name, Haku and Kimimaro were slightly stunned. Orochimaru's name carried significant weight, even more than Zabuza's. And now, this legendary figure was actually one of Byakuya's subordinates. Just how powerful was Byakuya? Orochimaru, on the other hand, swallowed slightly, clearly eager to study these 2. Seeing this, Byakuya frowned and spoke sternly. Orochimaru, these 2 are my subordinates. I won't allow you to experiment on them. You may collect some blood samples occasionally, but you must ensure their bodies remain unharmed. At Byakuya's warning, Orochimaru snapped out of his thoughts and reluctantly looked away. This wasn't his personal lab in Hidden Sound Village, it was Byakuya's base. He had long since witnessed Byakuya's terrifying strength, and without absolute confidence, he wouldn't dare provoke him. After refocusing his mind, Orochimaru turned to Byakuya and asked. Byakuya-sama, I assume you didn't summon me just to collect blood samples? Byakuya nodded. Kimimaro has developed the Kaguya clan's genetic disease. I called you here to see if you can find a cure for him. Aside from that, I also want to ask about the progress of your curse mark research. Shikatsumiyaku's genetic disease? Orochimaru fell into deep thought before responding. As far as I know, every enhanced Kaguya clan member suffers from this condition, and there has never been a cure. If no one else can cure it, I trust that you can. Byakuya said firmly. After a brief pause, he continued. After spending time with Kimimaro, I've more or less figured out the cause of the disease. His Shikatsumiyaku is incredibly powerful, but his body isn't strong enough to handle it. If he had a physique similar to mine, he wouldn't have developed the disease at all. It's due to physical limitations? Orochimaru mused. Since my leader has spoken, I will do my best to find a solution. He made a mental note before moving on. As for the progress on the curse mark research, the current success rate is still very low. Apart from Jugo, who naturally possesses sage body, the success rate for other test subjects is less than 10%. Less than 10%? Byakuya nodded slightly. That's already better than wood style, but it's still not viable for large-scale use. So, is there any way to lower the failure rate? Orochimaru shook his head and elaborated on the specific success rates. For ordinary people, the survival rate is 1%. For Geinin, it's 10%. For Chunin, it's 20%. Jonin won't die from it. To have a completely side-effect-free transplantation, the subject needs to be at least an elite Jonin. After hearing this, Byakuya fell into deep thought. The problem with the curse mark was clear: the weak had a high risk of death, while the strong found little benefit from it. The curse mark significantly boosted the power of weaker shinobi because it unlocked hidden potential, but this process was extremely dangerous and often fatal. Meanwhile, elite Jonin had already tapped into their full potential, so the curse mark provided little to no enhancement for them. In some cases, it even weakened them. To create a curse mark that could enhance even elite Jonin, the only possibilities were the yet-to-be-perfected heaven and earth curse marks or the sage mode of the three great summoning lands. But the success rate of sage mode was even lower than the curse mark. It was something only the most talented shinobi could achieve. Pulling himself back from his thoughts, Byakuya patted Orochimaru on the shoulder and said, "Keep working on it. I've always had high expectations for you. Honestly, I believe the curse mark has even greater potential than the sage mode of the three great summoning lands. Perhaps you, Orochimaru, can develop your own unique sage mode." Though he knew Byakuya was just flattering him, Orochimaru was still pleased. After all, there weren't many shinobi in the world who truly recognized his talent, and even fewer who were willing to fund his research. Chapter 352, The Reaction of the Four Great Shinobi Villages. A few days later, news of the chaos in Hidden Mist Village gradually spread across the entire shinobi world. Despite Genji and the high-ranking officials of Hidden Mist Village doing their best to suppress information about the internal turmoil, a battle of such scale could not escape the eyes of spies from other villages. Intelligence quickly made its way to the information agencies of each village, landing on the desks of the remaining four Kage. Hidden Stone's village front lines. The third Sushi Kage was already overwhelmed with the war against Hidden Leaf Village. When he officially initiated the war, Onoki had assumed that Hidden Leaf Village would be greatly weakened after the loss of the Uchiha clan and that they would be forced to cede some benefits and land to Hidden Stone's village. He had even hoped that some of the surrounding minor nations might fall into Hidden Stone's village's grasp along with the spoils of war. However, to his surprise, as the war continued, Hidden Leaf Village miraculously held on. The long-absent Tsunade had returned to the front lines, stabilizing Hidden Leaf Village's morale. Moreover, Saratobi Shinosuke, the head of Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu, had sacrificed his life to destroy Hidden Stone's village's supply base. After a series of these setbacks, Hidden Stone's village had already lost its initial advantage. At this point, even holding on to the land they had already taken was difficult, advancing further was out of the question. Internally, Hidden Stone's village faced another issue. Both Roshi, the Four-Tails Jinchuriki, and Han, the Five-Tails Jinchuriki, repeatedly disobeyed Onoki's orders and refused to push deeper into the Land of Fire, preventing Hidden Stone's village from fully utilizing its tailed beast advantage. This left Onoki feeling exhausted, as if fate itself was preventing Hidden Stone's village from rising. The only bit of relief was that Deodara had not caused any problems lately. He had been following orders and using his explosive art along the Land of Fire's border, alleviating Hidden Stone's village's firepower shortage to some extent. At that moment, the frontline captain, Kitsuchi, entered the office and handed a scroll of intelligence to Onoki. Opening it, Onoki found information regarding Hidden Mist Village. According to Hidden Stone's village's spies, Hidden Mist Village had recently experienced a serious internal conflict. The fourth Mizukage, Yagura, had been discovered to be under someone else's control, leading to a battle within Hidden Mist Village. After a fierce struggle and the aid of external reinforcements, Hidden Mist Village barely managed to defeat the fourth Mizukage, though the mastermind behind it all had ultimately escaped. Onoki had never placed much importance on Hidden Mist Village's affairs. Although Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Mist Village were geographically separated by the sea, the two villages had little direct conflict of interest. Both of their priorities were centered on the Land of Fire, the heart of the shinobi world. Besides, ever since the second Mizukage and the second Tsuchikage perished together in battle, Hidden Mist Village had lost the strength to threaten Hidden Stones Village. The so-called five great shinobi villages were not as evenly matched as they appeared. In a one-on-one battle, Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Mist Village simply could not compete with Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Clouds Village, or Hidden Leaf Village. However, what caught Onoki's attention was the identity of the reinforcement that aided Hidden Mist Village. It was none other than Byakuya, someone he had long regarded as possessing the potential of a demigod. Why had Byakuya gone to Hidden Mist Village? Why had he helped Hidden Mist Village defeat the fourth Mizukage? Who was the shinobi that had controlled the fourth Mizukage? These questions swirled in Onoki's mind, giving him a strong sense of foreboding. He vaguely sensed that beneath the seemingly calm surface of the shinobi world, a massive conspiracy was brewing. In just a few short years, Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Sand Village, and Hidden Mist Village had all undergone major upheavals. Perhaps the next village to be thrown into chaos would be Hidden Stones Village. Worse yet, Onoki had no idea what was coming, nor did he have the manpower to launch an investigation. For now, he could only focus on quickly resolving the current battlefield situation, securing more resources for Hidden Stones Village, and ensuring the village could enter a period of recovery. As for taking advantage of Hidden Mist Village's internal strife to launch an attack, Onoki didn't even dare to entertain the thought. Hidden Clouds Village compared to the stressed-out third Tsuchikage, the fourth Raikage was much more at ease. It had been 5 years since the war between Hidden Clouds Village and Hidden Leaf Village ended. While 5 years was not enough time to cultivate a new generation of shinobi, it was sufficient for Hidden Clouds Village to recover its strength. Furthermore, the Land of Lightning, located in the mountainous northeastern part of the shinobi world, was naturally easy to defend and difficult to attack. Hidden Clouds Village had always been the aggressor in wars, never the one being attacked. As for why the third Raikage had died surrounded by Hidden Stones Village's forces, that was thanks to two cunning old foxes, Onoki and Denzo. Hidden Stones Village had been the one to tear up the peace agreement. After spending a few hours training with his men, the fourth Raikage wiped his sweat with a towel and entered his office. With the help of his assistant, he began reviewing official documents at a leisurely pace. At that moment, he seemed to recall something and turned to Mibui, asking, "Still no news of the Two Tails or Yujito?" After all these years, even if Yujito is dead, the Two Tails should have revived by now. Mibui shook her head. "There is still no news of the Two Tails revival. However, I have received intelligence regarding a major disturbance in Hidden Mist Village." "A disturbance? Let's hear it," the fourth Raikage said with interest. After carefully choosing her words, Mibui recounted what had happened in Hidden Mist Village, including the revelation that the fourth Mizukage had been controlled, as well as the battle between Byakuya and the masked man. Hearing Byakuya's name, the fourth Raikage furrowed his brows. He remembered Byakuya well. This was a shinobi who could rival him in taijutsu. At the time, he had even considered recruiting Byakuya into Hidden Clouds Village. He hadn't expected that in just a few short years, Byakuya would grow into a ninja capable of defeating the fourth Mizukage. However, why did the intelligence report mention that Byakuya possessed wood style? Wasn't wood style an ability unique to the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama? As if reading the Raikage's thoughts, Mibui quickly explained. Byakuya is a member of the Uzumaki clan, and the Uzumaki and Senju clans intermarried for generations. It's possible that Byakuya inherited Senju blood, which allowed him to awaken wood style. The fourth Raikage was momentarily stunned before letting out a laugh. The strongest wood style user in the shinobi world isn't even from Hidden Leaf Village? That's hilarious. Yet, his laughter was short-lived as his expression quickly turned serious. A shinobi as powerful as Byakuya was not good news for Hidden Clouds Village. Mibui pulled out a prepared intelligence report and spoke as she handed it over. Fourth Raikage, in addition to temporarily losing the fourth Mizukage as a combat force, there are also rumors that Hidden Mist Village's Six Tails Jinchuriki has gone missing. The Six Tails Jinchuriki is missing? Wasn't he already a runaway? Mibui shook her head and explained. This time, it's not just a case of running away. Some within Hidden Mist Village speculate that the Six Tails Jinchuriki was taken by the masked man. His real goal in infiltrating Hidden Mist Village may have been the tailed beasts. At that moment, the fourth Raikage started to connect the dots. Clenching his fist, he asked. Are you saying Yujito isn't actually dead, but was captured, just like the Six-Tails Jinchuriki? Mabui nodded. That seems to be the only possibility. If Yujito had truly died, then after all these years, the Two Tails should have already revived. But no traces of the Two Tails chakra have appeared anywhere. The fourth Raikage's face darkened, and he turned to Mabui. Mabui, who do you think is behind Yujito's abduction? Mabui fell into deep thought before responding. It could be the masked man. But it could also be Hidden Leaf Village or Hidden Rain Village. However, what matters most right now is protecting Lord Killer Bee. Jinchuriki that have been taken are nearly impossible to recover. If anything happens to Lord Killer Bee. Before she could finish, the fourth Raikage slammed his fist onto his desk, shattering it in an explosion of splinters. Furious, he roared, I will protect Killer Bee. Pass down my orders, Killer Bee is forbidden from leaving the village without permission. He can only stay within Hidden Clouds Village or Thunder Gorge, nowhere else. To the fourth Raikage, Killer Bee was irreplaceable. Not only was he the village's perfect Jinchuriki, but he was also the most important family member he had left. Hidden Sand Village. The fifth Kazekage, Seisaori of the Red Sand, also received intelligence from Hidden Mist Village. Unlike the other villages, the one delivering the report was neither a secretary nor an Anbu operative, it was his grandmother, Chio. As Chio pushed the door open, Seisaori briefly glanced at her before setting down the mechanical components he had been working on. His voice was calm, indifferent. Another document that needs my signature and seal, Chio? Just leave it here. If it's urgent, you can always issue orders under your own authority as an elder. Chio sighed internally as she looked at her reclusive grandson. This boy had either disappeared from the village for over a decade or locked himself inside the Kazekage office for months, burying himself in research on chakra puppet technology. He dumped all of his Kazekage responsibilities onto an old woman like her. That said, to give credit where it was due, Seisaori was performing fairly well as Kazekage. He had no interest in handling government affairs, but he had made significant progress in both the economy and diplomacy. Economically, Seisaori had discovered oil deposits beneath the Land of Wind and used puppets to automate production, rapidly improving Hidden Sand Village's financial situation. The desert bandits, who once lived by robbing and pillaging, had transformed into wealthy landowners, living off the country's newfound natural resources. Diplomatically, Seisaori had taken direct control of the Land of Wind's feudal lord, freeing Hidden Sand Village from political subjugation. The only issue was that Seisaori had no intention of marrying or having children. More than that, his body was gradually transforming, advancing toward full puppetization. There was hardly anything left of his original human form. After a brief moment of contemplation, Chio addressed the fifth Kazekage. I can't keep signing everything for you. You are the true Kazekage of Hidden Sand Village. More importantly, this intelligence is too crucial, you have to read it yourself. Seisaori showed an expression of mild annoyance as he accepted the report. He skimmed it briefly and then remarked, I thought it was something important. Isn't it just by Akaya defeating the controlled fourth Mizukage and saving Hidden Mist Village? I already knew about this. You already knew. Chio was momentarily at a loss for words. Then she pressed on. That's not the point. The real issue is that by Akaya used wood style. That's the legendary bloodline limit of the first Hokage. Do you understand what this means? Seisaori nodded nonchalantly and replied. I've known about his wood style for a while now. Wood style, magnet style, there's not much difference. If anything, wood style is just more environmentally friendly. Maybe we should invite Akaya to Hidden Sand Village sometime and have him plant some trees in the desert. The masked man, on the other hand, is a more pressing issue. That's something worth paying attention to. As a member of the Akatsuki, Seisaori had received intelligence on Akaya several days ago. He also knew that the entire conflict was staged by Akatsuki itself. Because of this, he wasn't concerned in the slightest. With Gaara now firmly established as his younger brother, Akatsuki had no reason to target Hidden Sand Village anymore. Seeing Seisaori's indifferent attitude, Chio was left speechless. Then again, Hidden Mist Village's turmoil really had nothing to do with Hidden Sand Village. For now, Hidden Sand Village just needed to keep quietly amassing wealth. Hidden Leaf Village in the Hokage office, the third Hokage also received a report from his intelligence agents. Before this, he had been overwhelmed with managing both internal and external battles. With Tsunade and Jiraiya both returning to the battlefield, Hidden Leaf Village had barely managed to hold off Hidden Stone's village's invasion. During the most recent Jonin meeting, he had made numerous concessions to the major clans in exchange for their continued support. Step by step, things were finally starting to move in a positive direction. However, during this time, something happened that left him devastated. His son and daughter-in-law had both died in the war against Hidden Stone's village. More than half of Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu forces had also perished on the battlefield. The Hokage's faction was now at its weakest point in history. If the Uchiha clan had not already been wiped out in their attempted coup, the position of Hokage might have already changed hands. What's more, with the death of Shinosuke Sarutobi, his dream of grooming his son to be the fifth Hokage had been completely shattered. Now, aside from his estranged son, Asuma, and his young grandson, Konohamaru, the third Hokage had no remaining family. Heart heavy with grief, he opened the scroll detailing Hidden Mist Village's situation. Chapter 353, Naruto and Sasuke. After reviewing the situation in Hidden Mist Village, the third Hokage's expression was grim. The chaos in Hidden Mist Village was beneficial, and the fourth Mizukage losing his combat ability was also a positive outcome. This meant that for the next decade or so, Hidden Leaf Village would not have to worry about threats from across the sea. However, upon seeing that the one controlling the fourth Mizukage was the masked man, the third Hokage could no longer remain calm. The masked man was the mastermind behind the Nine Tails attack on Hidden Leaf Village. If not for that night, the fourth Hokage and the Nine Tails Jinchuriki would not have died, and the wars with Hidden Cloud's village and Hidden Stone's village would not have broken out one after another. Had none of this happened, Hidden Leaf Village would have already recovered its strength and be thriving with vitality. But reality had already played out differently, and the fallen shinobi could not be resurrected. Before long, the third Hokage took note of another key figure aside from the masked man, Hanzo's disciple, Byakuya, someone he had encountered once before. The third Hokage had witnessed Byakuya's strength. Unless something unexpected happened, Byakuya was bound to become a Kage-level shinobi in the future. What truly shocked the third Hokage was that, according to the intelligence report, Byakuya had consecutively defeated both the fourth Mizukage and the masked man, all while using the first Hokage's wood style. When he saw the mention of wood style, the third Hokage even doubted his own eyes. Byakuya was a shinobi of Hidden Rain Village. Even if he had Uzumaki blood in his veins, how could he possibly wield the first Hokage's wood style? That was a bloodline limit unique to the first Hokage himself, one that even Tsunade and Nawaki had not inherited. The only Hidden Leaf Village shinobi who had learned wood style was Yamato, a rare survivor of the wood style experiments. Could it be that Byakuya had undergone wood style experimentation and was an unknown survivor? However, given the timeline, even if Byakuya had been subjected to such experiments, the one conducting them would not have been Orochimaru. Moreover, according to the report, Byakuya wielded wood style with remarkable proficiency. Although he was not on par with the first Hokage, his skill was at least at a Kage-level standard. The thought of an Hidden Rain Village shinobi making a name for himself in the shinobi world with wood style left the third Hokage feeling as if he had swallowed a fly. It was absurd that something as iconic as Hidden Leaf Village's legacy would now be tied to Hidden Rain Village. At that moment, a thought emerged in the third Hokage's mind. If he could recruit Byakuya into Hidden Leaf Village, leveraging his Uzumaki lineage and wood-style bloodline limit, could he become a future pillar of Hidden Leaf Village and help the village overcome its current struggles? But the third Hokage quickly dismissed the idea. If Byakuya had wanted to join Hidden Leaf Village, he would have done so long ago. If Hidden Leaf Village were to formally extend an invitation now, it would not only fail to recruit Byakuya but also offend Hidden Rain Village and Hanzo. After more than a decade of strategic concealment and growth, Hidden Rain Village was no longer the weak village it once was. Though limited by its small land and population, Hidden Rain Village had, through the shifting power balance, already reached the level of the 5 great shinobi villages in terms of strength. Moreover, Hidden Leaf Village's current relationship with Hidden Rain Village was still relatively amicable, and the third Hokage had no desire to jeopardize that. Pushing aside his wandering thoughts, the third Hokage closed the intelligence scroll and gazed out the window, lost in contemplation. Just then, Kakashi knocked on the office door. Upon receiving permission, Kakashi entered the Hokage's office and reported to the third Hokage. Hokage-sama, Naruto has grown rapidly over the past few months. Not only has he learned many chakra control techniques, but he has also mastered wind-style chakra transformation. Rasengan? The third Hokage tapped his fingers on the desk, deep in thought. Kakashi continued. Naruto's chakra nature is wind. Other than Rasengan, I don't know what other jutsu to teach him. But since he's still young, shouldn't he train more at the academy before becoming a genin? The third Hokage glanced at Kakashi, his expression amused. He knew exactly what Kakashi was thinking. Kakashi did not want Naruto to graduate early because he wished to keep him away from war for as long as possible. But as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto was destined to be sent to the battlefield when the time came. With a calm tone, the third Hokage replied. I won't have Naruto graduate early. Let things progress naturally. Kakashi looked surprised as he stared at the third Hokage. The third Hokage lit his pipe and took a deep puff before saying, "Our conflict with Hidden Stone's village will soon come to an end. Since they haven't deployed their Jinchuriki, we also have no reason to use ours. And recently, a major event has occurred in Hidden Mist Village. The fourth Mizukage being controlled, the Six Tails Jinchuriki being captured." Kakashi was utterly shocked by these revelations. He finally understood why the third Hokage was in no rush for Naruto to graduate. Although Naruto had the strength of a Chunin, he was nowhere near the level of Jinchuriki, who were generally Kage level. In Hidden Leaf Village, Naruto was protected by Kakashi and the Anbu, ensuring that the masked man could not easily attack him. But once he left Hidden Leaf Village, his safety would be in jeopardy. At least now, they had confirmed the masked man's true motive for attacking Hidden Leaf Village in the past. It was for the Nine Tails. Apart from that, Byakuya's outstanding performance in Hidden Mist Village caught Kakashi's attention as well. He still remembered that back in the day, he and Byakuya were evenly matched. Now, Byakuya was capable of repelling the masked man. Sometimes, the gap between geniuses was even wider than that between humans and dogs. At that moment, something occurred to Kakashi. Bracing himself, he said, "Hokage-sama, I have a request." The third Hokage looked at Kakashi and nodded. "What is it?" Taking a deep breath, Kakashi said, "Since Naruto is now capable of protecting himself, shouldn't we tell him about his heritage?" The third Hokage's expression darkened. He exhaled a puff of smoke before saying, "Now is not the right time to reveal Naruto's lineage. The timing is not yet mature. Then may I ask, Hokage-sama, when will the right time be?" The third Hokage was silent for a few seconds before responding. "Once Naruto becomes a Jonin. Besides, he is no longer being mistreated in the village. With his understanding of the will of fire, he has already earned the villagers' recognition." He paused before continuing. "Whether or not his identity is revealed no longer matters." Kakashi's gaze flickered with a barely noticeable complexity before he nodded. "Since you have decided, Hokage-sama, I have nothing more to say. Please take care of yourself, I will take my leave." With that, Kakashi exited the Hokage's office. After Kakashi left, the third Hokage took a deep drag of his pipe. With his experience, he could clearly see that Kakashi was expressing dissatisfaction with him. But what else could he do? Naruto had already earned the village's recognition through his own efforts. If his lineage as Minato's son were revealed now, it wouldn't significantly change the villagers' attitudes toward him. But it would undeniably leave a stain on the third Hokage's legacy. The villagers and Minato's former subordinates would question his decisions, accusing him of keeping Naruto's identity a secret and allowing him to be unfairly treated. Yet, if he continued delaying, the situation might only worsen. Right? Shoving these chaotic thoughts aside, the third Hokage called out, "Anbu, bring me intelligence reports on all the major clans in the village." The Anbu nodded and swiftly delivered the latest reports. Among Hidden Leaf Village's prominent shinobi clans, the Anbu primarily monitored the Uchiha, Hyuga, and the Inoshikacho clans, families that possessed the potential to challenge the Hokage's authority. The intelligence on the Inoshikacho remained unchanged. Just like before, they continued to hold positions that, while not particularly high-ranking, were indispensable. They had never shown any ambition to overthrow the Hokage, yet they had never once lost in political struggles. They were always on the winning side. The Hyuga clan, however, harbored aspirations of producing a Hokage. Especially after the Uchiha clan's downfall, the Hyuga had inherited the title of Hidden Leaf Village's most powerful clan, making them the greatest political threat to the Hokage's position. Unlike the extreme tendencies of the Uchiha, however, dealing with the Hyuga clan was far simpler. The caged bird seal had divided the Hyuga into the main house and the branch house. Initially, the main house and branch house existed in a protector and protected relationship, but over time, a deep and intense conflict had developed between the two. In theory, the main house held absolute power over the branch house, with the ability to kill any branch member at will. The branch house had no means of resisting. But the caged bird system could not override Hidden Leaf Village's laws. The third Hokage only needed to periodically express support for the branch house to ensure that the Hyuga clan remained locked in endless internal strife. Following Itachi Uchiha's massacre of his clan, only Sasuke remained in Hidden Leaf Village. This made surveillance easy, just 2 rotating Anbu operatives were sufficient. However, the Anbu had recently discovered that they were not the only ones monitoring Sasuke. All evidence indicated that the other surveillance team consisted of shinobi from the now dissolved Root organization. Faced with this situation, the Anbu dared not interfere and simply reported it to the third Hokage. The third Hokage merely glanced at the report and dismissed it, silently approving Denzo's actions. As long as Sasuke remained in Hidden Leaf Village, the third Hokage had no interest in meddling with this last Uchiha survivor. He neither cared to interfere with Sasuke's fate nor had any intention of taking action against him. As for why Root operatives were still active despite the organization's official dissolution, the third Hokage couldn't be bothered to dwell on it. Since Root no longer had any legitimate standing, he could suppress or absorb its remnants whenever necessary. For now, Denzo funding and training his own group of Root shinobi wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Itachi Uchiha, however, was a different matter, one that irritated the third Hokage. Before leaving the village, Itachi had sworn that in exchange for allowing Sasuke to be protected, he would provide intelligence on the masked man. Yet, after all this time, Itachi had not delivered a single piece of useful information. The third Hokage still had no concrete details on the masked man's abilities, motives, or the number of subordinates he commanded. Everything about him remained an enigma. At times, the third Hokage even suspected that Itachi had joined forces with the masked man. However, as long as Itachi did not display open hostility toward Hidden Leaf Village, the Hokage had no reason to sever their deal. Having a Mangekyo Sharingan user still loyal to Hidden Leaf Village was already a rare and valuable asset. After waving the Anbu away, the third Hokage picked up Hidden Leaf Village's future strategic plan. Many sections of the plan had already been crossed out. These were all decisions made in recent years that had contributed to Hidden Leaf Village's overall strength. Each one was at least as significant as an S-rank mission. Among them were plans such as annexing the Land of Waves to secure overseas interests for Hidden Leaf Village and organizing a joint Chunin exam to boost Hidden Leaf Village's influence. The official purpose of the joint Chunin exams was to select new Chunin. In reality, however, they were a military showcase between the shinobi villages. The true goal of participating in the exams was not merely to become a Chunin but to demonstrate military strength in front of the feudal lords of various nations, thereby securing more resources and higher-paying missions. Years ago, Itachi Uchiha won first place in the joint Chunin exam, bringing great benefits to Hidden Leaf Village. Currently, due to military conflicts, the exam has been delayed for several months. But once peace was restored, resuming the exam would be a priority. Only by excelling in the Chunin exams could Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi regain their confidence. After leaving the Hokage's office, Kakashi arrived at the training ground. Naruto and Sasuke had already been waiting for a long time. The moment they saw Kakashi, they immediately spoke up. "Kakashi-sensei, you're finally here. You're late again." Kakashi glanced at Naruto before shifting his gaze to Sasuke. Technically, he hadn't been assigned to train Sasuke. But after hearing that Naruto was receiving special training, Sasuke insisted on joining in as well. At first, Kakashi wanted to refuse, claiming that only elite students were eligible for special training. However, Sasuke quickly learned tree climbing and water walking techniques, leaving Kakashi with no choice but to accept him as a temporary student. After all, taking care of one kid was already a hassle, what difference did one more make? As time passed, Kakashi noticed that Sasuke shared many similarities with himself, including his personality and chakra nature. Many of his jutsu were directly applicable to Sasuke's training. As for whether the third Hokage would object to him mentoring Sasuke, the Anbu watching from the shadows had made no move to stop him. That meant the third Hokage was aware of his actions and had tacitly approved. Today's excuse for being late, what is it this time? Helping an old lady cross the street? Sasuke gave Kakashi a sideways glance and said. All the old ladies in the village have already been helped by Naruto. I doubt there's anyone left who needs your assistance. Or, did you get lost on the road of life again? Kakashi silently cursed at how easily his excuses had been exposed. He decided to tell the truth instead. Naruto, you've always wanted to know about your origins, right? I just asked the Hokage about it, but he's still keeping it a secret. He says you're not strong enough yet. Not strong enough? Hearing this, Sasuke's expression darkened as he turned to look at Naruto. Sasuke was well aware of Naruto's strength. Even though they had not yet graduated from the academy, both of them were capable of defeating a Chunin-level instructor. If even that wasn't enough to qualify for the truth, then what was? Naruto, however, didn't seem particularly affected. He simply smiled and said, "The Hokage must have his reasons. There's no need for us to force the issue. One day, he'll tell me of his own accord." Chapter 354, The Deal with Kushina. Seeing Naruto's calm and carefree demeanor, Kakashi couldn't help but feel that it was unfair to him. From the moment Naruto was born, he had never done anything wrong. He was like a ray of sunshine in the village, warming both the villagers and his comrades. In the future, he would undoubtedly become one of Hidden Leaf Village's pillars. Was it really so excessive for such a bright and cheerful boy to want to know about his own origins? Or was it that the third Hokage was too afraid of public backlash, deliberately concealing Naruto's identity so that the truth would remain hidden forever? Sasuke could empathize with Naruto, though he was not as composed about it. Naruto had lost his parents, but he had never experienced parental love and had no idea who his enemies were. He was free to live his life however he wanted. Sasuke, on the other hand, had witnessed his parents being murdered and knew exactly who his enemy was. Ever since that night, the night the Uchiha were massacred, he had lost count of how many times he had woken up from nightmares, haunted by the blood-red moon illuminating that night of madness. All he wanted now was to grow stronger as quickly as possible and take revenge on that man. With this in mind, Sasuke couldn't hold back his frustration. Naruto, how can the third Hokage go back on his promise to you? Let's go find him together and ask about that man while we're at it. Naruto shook his head and said to Sasuke. Forget it, Sasuke. Even if we go to the Hokage's office, it'll be a waste of time. Instead, we should focus on training and graduating as soon as possible. Naruto looked at Sasuke before narrowing his eyes. You've always wanted to defeat your brother, haven't you? He's stronger than even Kakashi-sensei. Hearing this, Sasuke fell silent. Without another word, he picked up his training gear and began his daily exercises. Of course, he knew he wasn't a match for Itachi yet. He knew he needed to become stronger. But he was afraid. Afraid that he might grow too comfortable in this peaceful environment and forget his hatred. What Sasuke and Kakashi didn't realize was that Naruto's heart wasn't as calm as it seemed. He had already learned the truth about his origins. Hearing Kakashi's report only deepened his disappointment in the third Hokage. Naruto has read Hidden Leaf Village's history books and understood both the achievements and failures of its past Hokage. Before his father, the fourth Hokage, had taken office, the third Hokage had been a decent leader. But after the Nine-Tails attack, he had never done anything noteworthy again. During the war with Hidden Cloud's village, Hidden Leaf Village had barely won, relying on the Uchiha and Hidden Rain Village's assistance. And yet, after the war, the Uchiha received no benefits. Instead, the third Hokage targeted them even more harshly, ultimately leading to the Uchiha massacre, which left Sasuke as the sole survivor of his clan. Although Itachi was the one who carried out the massacre, he was not the one who benefited most from it. That honor belonged to the third Hokage and a certain man who wielded Hokage-level power without the title, the leader of Root. This series of events left Naruto deeply disillusioned. He no longer believed that the third Hokage deserved to remain in power. And in the village's history over the past decade, Naruto kept coming across one familiar name. Byakuya, also known as Byakuya Uzumaki. He was a jonin from Hidden Rain Village who had once visited Hidden Leaf Village alongside Yahiko, the current leader of the Rain, and had developed a strong friendship with Naruto's parents. During the war against Hidden Cloud's village, Byakuya, fighting as an ally, had put on an extraordinary display. He had fought the fourth Raikage, a Kage-level shinobi, to a standstill. He was undoubtedly the most brilliant fighter in that battle. If Naruto ever wanted to make a move within the village, perhaps he would need to establish contact with Byakuya. But how? He was just a small fry who hadn't even graduated from the academy. How could he possibly get in touch with such a powerful figure? Would the third Hokage even allow him to leave the village? Pushing these thoughts aside, Naruto emptied his mind and threw himself into training. He might not be able to leave the village, but that didn't mean Black Zetsu couldn't. That old relic from the Warring States period possessed plenty of lost and forbidden jutsu. A few hours later, Sasuke left the training ground, drenched in sweat. Thinking back to his sparring match with Naruto, his expression darkened with frustration. He had lost to Naruto again. If he couldn't even defeat Naruto, how was he supposed to defeat Itachi? When he got home, he would have to train in secret. That was the only way to surpass Naruto. Soon, Sasuke arrived at his residence. Despite the grand size of his family estate, he felt no joy. Instead, he was overwhelmed by a sense of emptiness. There was no one else here. In fact, he was the only Uchiha left in the entire district. Sometimes, it felt like none of this was real, that he had never woken up after returning to the village that night, trapped in an endless nightmare. Shaking off his wandering thoughts, Sasuke ran a hot bath, intending to train again after washing up. Just then, he noticed something unusual. A scroll had appeared on his dust-covered dining table. On its surface was a clearly visible fan crest, the emblem of the Uchiha. Sasuke glanced around before discreetly hiding the scroll, his mind racing with questions. Where had this scroll come from? Had the people watching him noticed it? Did it contain the information he desperately sought? Sasuke knew he was being watched. Ever since he started learning counter-surveillance techniques, he had been aware of it. And he had a good idea who was behind it. It had to be the third Hokage's men. Only he would have Sasuke monitored at all times, supposedly for his safety as the last Uchiha. Without wasting time, Sasuke slipped into the bathroom and unsealed the scroll. There were no intelligence reports inside. Instead, it contained several high-level fire-style jutsu, as well as instructions on using the Sharingan and its secret techniques. But even this much was enough to put Sasuke on high alert. After the massacre, all the clan's advanced fire-style scrolls had disappeared, let alone secret techniques related to the Sharingan. Who had sent this to him? And how did they know he had awakened his Sharingan? Sasuke reread the scroll multiple times before finally finding a few handwritten notes at the end. They were simple instructions: train diligently, greet people more often, and so on. Sasuke frowned. It had been a long time since he had heard such caring words. Was it from Kakashi? That actually seemed like something Kakashi would do. Fine. He would accept the scroll and use it to grow stronger. Unbeknownst to Sasuke, two figures hidden in the shadows exchanged whispers. They were none other than members of Root under Shishui's command. And more importantly, they were Sasuke's parents, Fugaku Uchiha and Mikoto Uchiha. This wasn't the first day they had been watching over him. It was a mission assigned to them by Shishui, one of the rewards for their loyalty. For them, monitoring Sasuke was more of a blessing than a burden. It allowed them to watch over him up close. The only downside was that they could never reveal their identities. That wasn't too difficult for Fugaku. But for Mikoto, it was agonizing. Seeing Sasuke all alone always broke her heart. Fugaku, do you think Sasuke will be able to master those jutsu? Fugaku crossed his arms and replied. Sasuke's talent doesn't compare to Itachi's, but he should be able to handle those jutsus. Haven't you seen how hard he's been training to take revenge on Itachi? Mikoto's face stiffened at those words. But what if Sasuke becomes too strong? What if he actually kills Itachi? Fugaku let out a soft sigh and said. This was Itachi's own choice. If he ends up being killed by Sasuke, then he has only himself to blame. We should refrain from interfering too much. After all, we are already dead. Besides, even if we wanted to intervene, Shishui wouldn't allow it. After the mentioning of Shishui, his face turned grim. The Shishui of today is no longer the young genius Jonin who once spoke endlessly about the village. He's now the cold and ruthless leader of Root. Hearing this, Mikoto sighed and said. I don't even know when Shishui and Itachi started changing like this. They used to be such good friends, but now they're at each other's throats. Even we and Sasuke have become mere pawns in their game. A tear formed in Mikoto's eye. Perhaps it's because of their differing ideologies. Fugaku mused. Back in the day, the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha were also close friends, but when their beliefs clashed, they fought to the death at the Valley of the End. I believe that deep down, they still considered each other friends. But when the time came, they wouldn't hesitate to kill one another. After a brief moment of reflection, Fugaku continued. Mikoto, let's get back to our mission. While Sasuke sleeps, we need to ensure he remains safe from harm. And also prepare our mission report. After discussing the research direction of the cursed seal with Orochimaru, Byakuya stepped out of the laboratory. There was no doubt that the ultimate form of the cursed seal was Sage Mode. In the original timeline, Orochimaru had succeeded in creating an artificial sage body, allowing Mitsuki to master Sage Mode from birth. However, Mitsuki's success was similar to Yamato's, it was achieved through transplantation. In fact, Mitsuki was essentially a synthetic human. This method of artificially cloning bloodline limit became widespread in the post-Fourth Shinobi War era, but it also introduced numerous ethical dilemmas. For instance, were synthetic humans mere tools, or were they true shinobi? And what were the moral implications of such creations? Though these issues had yet to surface, they needed to be preemptively addressed to prevent any major crisis in the future. Leaving the laboratory, Byakuya received a piece of intelligence. As if recalling something, he turned and walked toward another underground facility, Akon's lab, which focused on medical ninjutsu research and development. After greeting Akon, Byakuya stepped into the deepest chamber of the lab. And, in case anyone forget, Akon is Karen's mother. Inside, a patient was being held. It was none other than the previous Night Tale's Jinchuriki, Kushina Uzumaki. Thanks to Akon's care, Kushina's health was in good condition. However, due to being deprived of sunlight for so long, her skin had become pale, and her complexion wasn't great. Upon hearing footsteps in the corridor, Kushina sensed Byakuya's arrival and spoke with clear irritation. Byakuya, what brings you here today? Are you here to check in on your prisoner? Byakuya stared at Kushina and smiled. Kushina, nay, you're joking. I've never restricted your freedom. I only kept you in the lab out of concern for your health. If it weren't for Akon taking care of you, you'd be dead by now. Being stuck in this tiny room is no different from being dead. Kushina snapped back. For someone as outgoing as her, being confined here was no different from imprisonment. Hearing this, Byakuya calmly responded. Haven't you already grown accustomed to this? Back in Hidden Leaf Village, when you were the Jinchuriki, weren't you also locked away and monitored at all times? Kushina's expression darkened, and she frowned. Byakuya, what do you really want? So much time has passed, are you still holding a grudge against Hidden Leaf Village? I don't hold a grudge against Hidden Leaf Village. In fact, I've saved many Hidden Leaf Village shinobi. After a brief pause, Byakuya continued. I came today because I just received some news. The war between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village has ended. Naruto won't have to go to the battlefield. Naruto. At the mention of Naruto's name, Kushina could no longer maintain her composure. Again with Naruto. If you're not going to let me go, why do you keep bringing him up? What exactly are you trying to do? Byakuya thought for a moment, then said. It's simple. I want revenge on the Hidden Leaf Village higher-ups who issued those orders back then. I want them to suffer. I want them to regret their betrayal. As an Uzumaki yourself, you should understand. If Hidden Leaf Village hadn't broken its alliance, Hidden Village would never have been destroyed. Oh, and you probably don't know this yet, Hiruzen still hasn't revealed Naruto's true identity. He's still hiding it from him, not wanting Naruto to know that you and Minato were his parents. Upon learning of Byakuya's true goal, Kushina visibly calmed down. So you want revenge on Hidden Leaf Village's higher-ups? But what does that have to do with Naruto? With your strength, you could assassinate the third Hokage anytime. Why are you trying to use Naruto? It's simple, because I am not a Hidden Leaf Village shinobi. Therefore, I will not act against Hidden Leaf Village myself. Pausing for a moment, Byakuya continued. Our Uzumaki clan was betrayed back then. Now, it's only fair that Hiruzen Sarutobi experiences betrayal himself. Letting the very ninja he raised shatter his dreams is the only way to make up for what was done to the Uzumaki. And Naruto is the perfect candidate. He's the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, another Minato Namikaze. If even Naruto turns against them, they will truly know despair. And you are the best bargaining chip I have to control Naruto. Kushina was momentarily stunned. Then, she let out a cold laugh. You're not even trying to hide your plan? You're just laying it all out in front of me? Aren't you afraid I'll tell Naruto everything? Byakuya smiled and replied. I'm not worried about you betraying me, nor will I harm you. Because in my plan, Naruto will be the next Hokage. He looked her in the eyes. Kushina, will you really refuse to let Naruto become the next Hokage? Chapter 355, 2 years after listening to Byakuya's words, Kushina fell into silence. She couldn't understand why he was revealing his plan against the third Hokage to her, nor why he had chosen to imprison her here after saving her. But one thing was clear, when facing Byakuya, she had no power to choose. Whether she opposed his plan or not, Byakuya would go through with his scheme to make Hiruzen suffer. Any resistance or protest would be meaningless. As for the promise of making Naruto the fifth Hokage, Kushina couldn't deny that it tempted her. If Naruto could become Hokage, it meant he had earned the recognition of everyone in the village. That was something good for Naruto, something she couldn't bring herself to refuse. After a moment of contemplation, Kushina looked at Byakuya and asked. You've said so much, what exactly do you want me to do? Byakuya glanced at her and replied. You don't need to do anything. Just return to Hidden Leaf Village at the designated time, take on the role of the Hokage's widow, and present the evidence I've prepared against Hiruzen Sarutobi. Before she could respond, he handed her a scroll filled with text. Kushina took it, scanning its contents, her expression quickly turning strange. The information inside all pertained to the third Hokage. They were real events that had occurred, but the way they were described was utterly outrageous. For example, it claimed that when the second Hokage appointed Hiruzen as his successor, Hiruzen had already anticipated his master's thoughts and had deliberately stayed behind to cover the retreat, gaining the second Hokage's trust through self-sacrifice. Another section alleged that when Hidden Leaf Village's White Fang had a chance to become Hokage, Hiruzen manipulated public opinion to force him into suicide. It even accused Hiruzen of deliberately delaying his response during the Nine-Tails attack, issuing orders that kept the Uchiha clan from intervening, and intentionally putting Kushina and Minato in mortal danger. And during the Uchiha massacre, it claimed that Hiruzen had personally ordered Itachi to slaughter his own clan. After finishing the scroll, Kushina's expression had turned grim. Byakuya, where did you get all this so-called evidence? Is any of it even true? Byakuya met her gaze, satisfied with her reaction. Some of it is true. Some of it is speculation. But whether Hiruzen really did all these things, that doesn't matter anymore. It's because regardless of what the truth was, the outcome is what it is now. Kushina scoffed, then narrowed her eyes at him. That's rich coming from you. There are plenty of mysteries about you as well. For example, why were you in Hidden Leaf Village the night I gave birth to Naruto? And why did you only reveal yourself after Minato sacrificed himself along with the Ninetales? Byakuya sighed and said. Kushina-ne, have you forgotten? I'm not a Hidden Leaf Village shinobi. I had no reason to help Hidden Leaf Village fend off its enemies. The only reason I even saved you was because we're from the same clan. If not for the Ninetales attack weakening Hidden Leaf Village, how else would Hidden Rain Village have risen so quickly? Kushina was briefly stunned by his bluntness, then let out a quiet sigh. Byakuya wasn't wrong. While Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Rain Village had a friendly relationship, that was only because of Minato's ties with Yahiko and the others. Between their villages, there was no guarantee of eternal friendship, especially considering Hidden Leaf Village's history with Hidden Cloud's village. Minato's warm welcome to Yahiko back then had simply been a political maneuver to secure an alliance with Hidden Rain Village. Then, Byakuya dropped a bombshell. Besides, the Ninetales attack was an internal matter of Hidden Leaf Village. Why would an outsider like me interfere? Internal matter? Kushina frowned, staring at him. What do you mean by that? Are you saying the masked man who attacked Hidden Leaf Village was connected to the village? Wasn't he Madara Uchiha, the one who defected decades ago? Byakuya shook his head. That masked man was not Madara Uchiha. He was a shinobi of Hidden Leaf Village, someone you knew quite well. The first time I fought him, I was so shocked that I actually thought he was the real Madara. A Hidden Leaf Village shinobi that I knew? Kushina murmured to herself before listing names. Was it Mikoto? Fugaku? Or some other Uchiha Jonin? But none of them had awakened the Mangekyo. They couldn't have beaten Minato. Byakuya smirked. Think carefully. Who was the Uchiha you were closest to? A horrible suspicion crept into Kushina's mind. She hesitated before finally whispering. Byakuya, you don't mean to tell me that it was Obito, do you? Byakuya nodded. Kushina's eyes widened in disbelief, and she immediately shook her head. No way. That's impossible. Obito was kind and gentle, there's no way he would have attacked Minato. He wasn't strong enough to fight him, either. Byakuya's voice was calm. Nothing is impossible. Obito awakened the Sharingan to protect Kakashi. After witnessing the brutality of the shinobi world, it wouldn't be surprising if he awakened the Mangekyo as well. Byakuya then raised a finger before explaining, at first, I doubted my own conclusions too. But after I heard about Nohara Rin's death, I wasn't surprised anymore. For someone like Obito, who had been starved of love since childhood, losing the person he loved most would inevitably break him. As for how he fought Minato, well, let me put it this way, the first time I came to Hidden Leaf Village, I already possessed the strength to rival the 5 Kage. Kushina fell silent. She now believed him. But she still couldn't understand why. Why would Obito attack her? Why would he attack the village? She had always treated him like a younger brother. Sure, she'd scolded him now and then, but that was just because of his mischievous nature. Byakuya seemed to read her thoughts and continued. You're wondering why Obito would betray Hidden Leaf Village? I wondered the same thing. But now, I have the answer. Obito's goal is to collect all the tailed beasts and resurrect the legendary 10 Tails. He wants to become the second sage of the 6 paths. Only then can he bring Rin back to life and create a world of eternal peace. Kushina was stunned. He's trying to bring Rin back. And bring peace to the world? She fell into deep thought before shaking her head. No matter his reasons, attacking the village just to resurrect Rin is unacceptable. I can't forgive him for that. Kushina then turned towards Byakuya. But if you know he's hunting the tailed beasts, why don't you stop him? Byakuya smirked. Hidden Rain Village doesn't have any tailed beasts. Why would I interfere? Every beast he captures weakens the 5 great nations. The more they suffer, the stronger Hidden Rain Village becomes. Unless Hidden Leaf Village submits to me, I have no reason to stop him. That's why I need you to expose Hiruzen's crimes and take control of Hidden Leaf Village on my behalf. Do you accept our deal? Kushina remained silent for a long time before finally nodding. After reading the evidence, she had begun to doubt the 3rd Hokage. Maybe he had started with good intentions, but the results had been disastrous. Under his rule, Hidden Leaf Village had fallen from its former glory into decline. If working with Byakuya meant removing Hiruzen from power, then that was ideal. As for whether she would continue cooperating with Byakuya after returning to Hidden Leaf Village, she would weigh her options then. Even if she became his puppet, at least she and Naruto could be reunited. Seeing her agreement, Byakuya was satisfied. Now, he could begin preparing for his move on Hidden Leaf Village. If he succeeded in taking over Hidden Leaf Village, the next phase of his plan would begin. The 5 great nations, the 9-tailed beasts, he would claim them all. Time passed quickly, and soon, it was time for Naruto and Sasuke to graduate. After the ceremony, The two were assigned to Kakashi's team. Neither of them were surprised. Both were top students in their class, and they had long been acquainted with Kakashi. Becoming his students was only natural. What did surprise them, however, was that Sakura was assigned to their team as well. Her physical skills weren't particularly strong, but her academic performance was outstanding. The three top-ranking students in their class being assigned to the same team made them question the fairness of the team distribution. However, Naruto was already used to it. There were no real rules when it came to ninja team assignments. Ultimately, the third Hokage had the final say. From as far back as he could remember, Naruto had already experienced the highs and lows of human nature. He knew that beneath Hidden Leaf Village's seemingly bright and prosperous exterior, a deep darkness lurked. Upon arriving at the training ground, Naruto and Sasuke greeted Kakashi. Unlike usual, Kakashi seemed more serious this time. He glanced at Naruto and Sasuke before speaking in a formal tone. "Nice to meet you. I'm Kakashi, a Jonin of Hidden Leaf Village. Let's start with introductions." Hearing this, Naruto and Sasuke exchanged skeptical looks but still obediently followed the instructions. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like eating ramen, and my dream is to earn everyone's acknowledgement and become the Hokage of this village. I don't like arrogant people." Sasuke glanced at Naruto, then said, "I'm Sasuke Uchiha. There's nothing I particularly like. My goal is to become stronger than the Hokage and kill." "Never mind." After hearing Naruto and Sasuke's introductions, Sakura spoke up. "I'm Sakura. There are a lot of things I like. My dream is to find someone I love and marry them. I don't like people who don't know their limits." After listening to her, Kakashi nodded. He already knew about Naruto and Sasuke's backgrounds since his mission was to protect his sensei's son and the last heir of the Uchiha. Sakura, on the other hand, was an ordinary girl from a civilian family, making her stand out as the most normal one among them. Was it really a good idea to assign a regular girl to this team? Or was the third Hokage deliberately placing a female member in Team 7, hoping that Naruto and Sasuke would compete over her, pushing them to grow stronger through rivalry? This method might have worked in other teams. But were Naruto and Sasuke the type to fight over a girl? Did the third really think these two would get jealous over Sakura? After the introductions, Kakashi habitually took out two bells and was about to explain the belt test when Naruto and Sasuke cut him off. "Kakashi-sensei, do we really have to do this? You already know our strength." Kakashi raised his brow slightly and said, "I know your abilities, but the belt test is a tradition of the village. Could you at least show some respect for me as your Jonin instructor?" Kakashi chuckled. "It seems I'll have to teach you both a lesson today, so you learn the importance of respecting your teacher." Hearing that, Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances. They were trying to disrespect Kakashi, they just didn't want to waste time on something so trivial. But since Kakashi was serious about it, they didn't mind testing their progress against him. After forming the seal of confrontation, Naruto and Sasuke launched their attack. Unlike in the original timeline, Kakashi wasn't foolish enough to handicap himself by standing still or restricting his movements.